Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're continuing with the next part of this epic time chamber series. My name is Ash. Please, for me, drop a like, join the Patreon, and subscribe to the page. Also, leave your comments down below. With that, let's begin.
Cross my heart and hope to die. Welcome to my dark side.
In an instant, like a bolt of lightning, Mephistopheles descended from the sky onto Champa's planet, as if he had simply walked out of the air itself. The impact of his arrival sent shockwaves through the atmosphere. His divine ki, dark and oppressive, pressed against everything around him like a suffocating weight. It was unlike anything anyone had ever felt before. Everyone sprang to their feet, alarmed. The sheer power of his presence was enough to make the bravest warriors tremble. Even Champa, the god of destruction, knew this wasn't just any visitor. This energy, he recognized its nature. After all, he had seen something similar before, though never at this magnitude. Mephistopheles' ki was suffused with destruction, but this was on a level Champa had never imagined. It was raw, dangerous, and relentless. The ground beneath Mephistopheles' feet began to crack and crumble, as if the very planet was being hockeyed just by his presence. Hit, the universe's most notorious assassin, narrowed his eyes. His body tensed as he instinctively raised his guard. He didn't need to wait for Mephistopheles to make a move. The killer intent was already radiating from him like a death sentence. Hit wasn't going to underestimate this new arrival, not for a second. Without hesitation, Kale and Caulifla, the two Saiyan warriors, locked eyes and understood immediately. They had to fuse. The energy pouring off Mephistopheles was more than either could handle alone. In a flash of energy, they merged into Kefla. The fusion gave them a fighting chance, but even then, the tension in the air was undeniable. Silence gripped the space as all eyes turned toward Lord Champa. He was healed, but the question remained, could he stand against such a force? Champa's mind raced as he stared down the invader. He could feel it, an energy disturbingly close to that of Vegeta's, but darker, more twisted in nature, and undeniably stronger. This being Mephistopheles. He wasn't just a threat, he was power incarnate, something beyond destruction itself. Champa shuddered at the thought, wondering if even his brother, Beerus, could hold his own against this creature. Kaba, the weakest of the group, gritted his teeth. He knew his chances, but he refused to back down. With a burst of energy, he transformed into his Super Saiyan 2 form, determination shining in his eyes. If this was the end, then he wouldn't go down without a fight. Outside the palace, Mephistopheles moved slowly, purposefully, savoring the fear in the air. His arm hung casually at his side, and a cold, satisfied grin stretched across his face. With each step closer to the palace, the tension mounted. When he reached the massive structure, he casually extended his hand, fingertips brushing the wall. "Hakai!" he roared, his voice booming like thunder. In an instant, the palace began to disintegrate, crumbling to dust as if it had never existed. The destruction was absolute. Within seconds, the mighty structure was gone, leaving nothing but the four warriors standing, their gazes locked on the threat before them. Mephistopheles' eyes gleamed with malice as he addressed them. "It's in your best interest to come with me as a false demon," he said, his voice cold and commanding. "I'd like to run some tests on you. Be a good boy and become my test subject." Champa blinked in disbelief. "Huh?" he muttered, taken aback. "Is he talking to me?" His confusion quickly turned to anger as he processed the threat. He clenched his fists, turning his attention fully to Mephistopheles. He took a deep breath before speaking up. "I don't know why you chose to come to this place," Champa growled, his voice filled with simmering fury. "But let me be the first to tell you that you are not invited. If you don't know what's good for you, you should turn around and leave before I get angry." Mephistopheles chuckled darkly, the sound echoing ominously in the ruined space. His arms stretched out wide, fingers splayed as if he were holding someone invisible by the throat. Then, in a chilling voice, he commanded, "Come to me." In the blink of an eye, as though pulled by an unseen force, Lord Champa found himself yanked forward, his neck firmly caught in Mephistopheles' iron grip. He hadn't even had a chance to react, his power meaning nothing in the face of this monstrous foe. Hit, standing off to the side, knew he had to act quickly. Time itself was his ally, and he wasn't about to waste it. Activating his time skip technique, he jumped half a second into the future, freezing the world around him. Everything stopped, or so he thought. Hit's eyes widened in disbelief as he noticed something impossible. Mephistopheles' eyes were moving, following his every move despite time being frozen. How could this be? No one should be able to see him within the time skip. And yet, Mephistopheles grinned, his eyes locked on Hit. Hit was frozen for a moment, completely paralyzed by shock. His mind raced, trying to process what had just happened. For a second, it was as if a part of himself had separated, moving within his time skip. He was used to this, moving through a space where time stood still, but no one, not even Goku, had been able to react during his time skip. Goku could predict where Hit would be. Yes, he had done it before, timing his reactions perfectly for when Hit stepped out of the skip to land his attack. But even Goku had to wait. He couldn't move while time itself was frozen. Yet somehow, Mephistopheles had done the impossible. Hit's time skip shattered, the still dimension he controlled crumbling like broken glass. The world around him resumed its flow, but something was terribly wrong. "How can this be?" Hit shouted, his voice filled with disbelief as he stared at Mephistopheles. His fists clenched and his eyes narrowed in confusion. No one could break his time skip. No one was supposed to be able to. Above, Champa, the god of destruction, was still gripped tightly by Mephistopheles. But the enormous purple cat wasn't about to give up. With a burst of rage, Champa summoned 2 massive orbs of destructive energy. The deadly spheres glowed with raw godly power as he slammed them into both sides of Mephistopheles' head. The demon god's grip loosened. Champa wasn't finished. He spun in the air with surprising agility, delivering a sharp kick to the side of Mephistopheles' face, sending the demon god flying. The impact was so intense that Mephistopheles crashed into a massive mountain, shattering the rock structure on the distant planet's surface. "Lord Champa, are you all right?" Kaba, the young sign warrior, called out as he rushed to his god's side, worry etched on his face. Champa landed with a heavy thud, dust swirling around his feet. He panted, his eyes darting around as he tried to gather himself. Something was off. Something was deeply wrong. His strength, it was draining, slipping away like water through his fingers. A huge chunk of his power had vanished. He wasn't at full capacity anymore, and he knew it immediately. "Hey, Hit!" Champa's voice was rough, barely containing his frustration. "What happened a while ago? Did he stop your time skip attack?" Hit, who was still standing frozen in place, snapped out of his daze. His usually calm demeanor was shaken. "Yes, my lord, but that shouldn't be possible. He didn't predict my movements like Goku did before. It was something else entirely." He shook his head, his brow furrowed. "I just can't figure it out." Before they could contemplate further, a deep, chilling voice echoed across the battlefield, rumbling from the mountain rubble. Mephistopheles emerged from the dust, standing tall and unharmed. In fact, he looked stronger than ever, as if the blows he'd received had only made him more powerful. "It's quite simple, really," Mephistopheles said, his voice dripping with dark amusement. "Isn't it obvious? I too can time skip." Hit's eyes widened, and Champa growled under his breath. How could this be? "You see," Mephistopheles continued, stepping forward with a sinister grin. "The demon gods were the originators of time skip. After the Great War, the ability was thought to be lost to history. But time skip wasn't an exclusive technique. Only certain races possessed the unique trait necessary to use it. And as it turns out, Hit, your race just happens to be one of the few capable of wielding that power." Hit gritted his teeth. Realization dawned on him. This was bigger than he had thought. Mephistopheles' voice deepened, the air around him growing heavier as he spoke. "The real reason time travel was banned across the universes isn't what you've been led to believe. Sure, there were reasons for it. Reasons you all know. But the true reason, the one kept secret, was to limit the demon race. We were growing too powerful, discovering ways to counter the angels, with techniques like dark siphoning, and yes, time skip." Kaba's eyes darted from Hit to Champa, then back to Mephistopheles. He was trying to process what he was hearing. "The Daishinkan," Mephistopheles said, uttering the name of the Grand Priest with a hint of venom, "saw how dangerous we were becoming. We were learning to fight back, finding ways to challenge the angels themselves. So he leveled the playing field by banning all time-related practices." Champa's fists clenched, and he took a step forward. "You're telling me the ban on time travel was all to stop your race? To keep the demons from gaining too much power? I've always thought that it was to stop people from messing with time." Mephistopheles chuckled darkly. "That's what they want." he wants you to believe. Let me give you a word of advice. I don't know why I am telling you all this, since you all will die here today. But that grand priest, he's evil, I tell you. That priest takes pleasure in killing, then says it's all in the name of maintaining balance to the universe. A tense silence fell over the battlefield as the weight of Mephistopheles' words settled in. Hit could feel his blood boiling. Champa, despite his exhaustion, stood tall, glaring at Mephistopheles. I won't let you win, no matter how strong you think you are. Mephistopheles smirked, his dark eyes gleaming. We'll see about that. Mephistopheles smirked confidently, his voice cold and calm as he spoke. The reason I was able to shut down your time skip technique is simple. I can time skip much further than you can. His words hung in the air like a challenge as he casually stepped forward, closing the distance between himself, Champa, and Hit. His dark aura pulsed, radiating an overwhelming power. Hit scoffed, the disbelief evident on his face. He had never encountered anyone who could time skip like him, let alone someone who claimed to surpass his ability. The very idea was laughable. Let's test that theory, Hit shouted, his confidence returning as he prepared to show Mephistopheles just how wrong he was. Without another word, Hit activated his time skip once more, but this time he pushed further. Instead of the usual 3/10 of a second, he leapt forward 1.0 second into the future, something he had never done before. Ever since the Tournament of Power, Hit had been relentlessly training. He had honed his technique with one goal in mind: defeating Jiren, the warrior who had once mocked his time skip, calling it weak. That insult had driven Hit to surpass his limits, and now he was ready to prove just how strong he had become. But Hit wasn't done yet. He could sense that Mephistopheles was different, full of dangerous tricks. He couldn't afford to take any chances. Focusing harder, Hit pushed his limits even further, extending his time skip to 3/10 of a second. It was the furthest he had ever gone, deeper into the future than he ever thought possible. For a brief moment, everything around him stood still. Time itself was frozen, and Mephistopheles was caught in that frozen state. Hit allowed a rare smile to cross his usually stoic face. This time, he had him. Serves you right for underestimating me, Hit muttered under his breath. Without hesitation, Hit clenched his fist, preparing to deliver the final blow. His hand was aimed straight at the heart of the demon god, ready to end this once and for all. The feeling of triumph surged through him as he powered up for the attack. Die, Hit yelled, throwing his arm forward with all his strength, ready to plunge his fist through Mephistopheles' chest. However, something truly shocking occurred at that very moment. Hit, who had skipped one full second into the future, began to slow down. His movements, which should have been lightning fast, turned sluggish, almost turtle-like. It was as if someone had jumped even further into the future than him, causing his time skip, which was now his present, to decelerate. Hit's mind raced, trying to understand what was happening. His eyes widened in disbelief, and his voice trembled as the realization hit him. Impossible, he managed to shout, though his words came out painfully slow, like they were being dragged through molasses. He was frozen in place, his body locked in mid-strike, his fist just inches from Mephistopheles' chest. The once unstoppable assassin now found himself helpless. His time skip, the ability that had made him one of the most feared fighters in the universe, was no longer under his control. Then, to Hit's utter horror, he saw Mephistopheles start to move. The demon god, who had been frozen in time a moment ago, was now shifting, his body coming back to life, while the roles between them were reversed. Hit, the master of time, was now the one trapped in the frozen moment. Mephistopheles had outdone him, skipping 3 full seconds into the future. It was a terrifying sight. Hit's future had become the past. The reality of it all crushed him. Mephistopheles had turned time itself against him. Suddenly, a sharp blow connected with Hit's chest. The pain exploded through him as Mephistopheles' hand pierced through his skin, digging into his left side. Hit's eyes widened even more as the demon god's voice rang out, cold and mocking. You wanted to take my heart? Mephistopheles sneered. Now, I'll take yours. With a ruthless yank, Mephistopheles pulled his arm back, gripping Hit's heart in his hand. The once beating organ, slick with blood, hung from his fist as he ripped it from Hit's chest. For Hit, the world stood still. His time skip had failed him, and now he was facing the ultimate consequence. In the blink of an eye, time resumed for everyone else. The battlefield returned to its normal pace, but for Hit, it was too late. The mighty assassin, the pride of Universe 6, lay dead on the ground, his body lifeless, his heart in the hands of Mephistopheles. He had been killed by his own technique. The others stared, their expressions a mix of confusion and horror. To them, it had all happened in an instant. One moment, Hit was there, attacking with all his might. The next, his heart had been ripped from his chest, and his body fell limp to the ground. "Hit!" Kaba screamed, his voice cracking as he rushed forward, unable to believe what he was seeing. The young Saiyan's eyes were wide with disbelief as he reached Hit's side. His ally, the greatest fighter of Universe 6, lay motionless. Kefla's fists clenched at her sides as she stared at Hit's cold, lifeless eyes. Her blood boiled with rage. The sight of his body laid out on the ground filled her with an uncontrollable fury. "How could you, you monster?" Kale's voice erupted with fury, her body trembling as the immense power of her rage began to overflow. Her eyes were alight with a deadly glow, and a fierce snarl formed on her lips. She clenched her fists tighter, and the air around her started to pulse violently. Kale's raw power surged, and it was clear she was no longer in control of her own emotions. The berserk side of her personality, the side that was driven by pure, unbridled rage, was now taking over. The ground beneath her feet quaked as a result of the intense power-up, and a blinding light engulfed her. Kefla's energy skyrocketed to levels that seemed to defy explanation. Their combined strength tore through the very fabric of the dimension they were in, making the realm in which Shampa's palace resided tremble as if the universe itself feared their might. Kefla's power kept climbing higher and higher, until, suddenly, she broke through a barrier she had never touched before. Her hair elongated and became more jagged, her brow ridges more pronounced. The air crackled with untamed energy as Kefla roared. She had transformed into Super Saiyan 3, the ultimate form of power she had never attained until now. Her aura flared wildly, radiating a destructive force that shook everything around her. Mephistopheles, the sinister being standing before her, merely tilted his head, observing this transformation with a curious yet amused expression. His lips curled into a wicked grin, the corners of his mouth stretching unnaturally far. "Oh?" he murmured, a hint of surprise in his voice. This mortal, no, this sane warrior, was now wielding power that could rival the gods themselves. The thought intrigued him. Before he could dwell on it any further, Kefla vanished. Her speed was so immense that she became nothing more than a blur, untraceable by normal senses. In an instant, she was on him, her fist rearing back with enough force to obliterate planet. Mephistopheles' grin widened, just as Kaba, having transformed into his perfected Super Saiyan 2 form, appeared beside her. The young warrior's energy burned brightly, his aura flickering with a vibrant intensity. He too had been training tirelessly, honing his strength, and now the fruits of his labor were on full display. Without a word, the two Saiyans launched their attack, coming in from both sides at blinding speed. The air around them distorted, and the ground beneath cracked under the pressure of their combined energy. Kaba and Kefla moved in perfect synchronization, their bodies blurring as they struck with all their might. Mephistopheles glanced sideways, his eyes catching the movements of both fighters in that split second. He didn't flinch. As their fists rocketed toward him, he raised his hands, palms outstretched. The clash was thunderous. Mephistopheles caught both of their punches, his fingers gripping their fists with ease. The shockwave from their combined force rippled through the atmosphere, causing Shampa's small planet to tremble as if caught in a cataclysmic storm. But the power behind their blows was immense, far greater than he anticipated. Mephistopheles' feet left the ground, his body pushed back by the raw force of the Saiyan's assault. The ground beneath them cracked and split open, and in the next moment, Mephistopheles was hurled through the air. His body crashed violently into the planet's surface, creating a massive crater as he skidded across the terrain like a comet striking from space. "Don't let up!" Kaba shouted, his eyes fierce with determination. He shot forward, his aura blazing a trail of golden light behind him. Kefla followed suit, her energy swirling like a cyclone as she propelled herself at the demon. Mephistopheles growled, digging his claws into the ground to halt his momentum. He looked up just in time to see the two Saiyans descending on him again, their combined energies blazing like twin suns. But before they could make contact, a shadow loomed overhead. Lord Champa, the god of destruction, dropped from the sky, his massive form descending with a power that felt like the weight of the entire universe. He landed directly on top of Mephistopheles, the impact causing a shockwave that shook the planet to its core. The force was so tremendous that it drove the demon deep into the planet's mantle, his body burrowing through rock and magma as he plummeted. The planet shuddered under the strain, cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, and then, in a deafening explosion of light and sound, the entire planet began to break apart. The power of the explosion was like nothing seen before, an eruption of energy that sent shockwaves rippling through the fabric of space itself. But just moments before the explosion, Champa did something that left everyone stunned. The god extended his hands, creating a protective barrier of energy around the two Saiyans. With a grunt of effort, he hurled them away from the disintegrating planet, sending them hurtling through space toward the nearest celestial body. Without a second thought, Champa leaped off the crumbling surface and followed them, his body darting through the vacuum of space like a streak of purple light. The planet behind them exploded in a blinding flash, the blast wave expanding outward. It was an incredible feat, one that would be hard to believe if not seen with one's own eyes. Yet Champa had done it. For the first time, the god of destruction had acted selflessly, sacrificing his own safety to protect the Saiyans in the midst of battle. The Saiyans' bodies hit the ground with a thunderous crash, carving a massive crater into the surface of the planet. Debris flew everywhere, scattering into the air as dust clouds rose from the impact site. Kefla groaned as she slowly stood up, shaking off the shock of their sudden landing. Kaba rolled onto his back, gasping for breath, his entire body sore from the crash. He glanced around, blinking in confusion. "We're alive?" Kaba panted, looking up at the sky as the smoke began to clear. His heart was still racing. After an explosion like that, he had expected to be vaporized. Yet here they were, bruised but very much alive. Champa, the god of destruction, landed a moment later, his plump frame descending with surprising grace as he touched down beside them. His face was stern, and his usually lazy eyes were sharp with resolve. The ground trembled slightly under the weight of his energy. "You could have given us a warning before throwing us like that, Lord Champa," Kaba grumbled, pushing himself to his feet and dusting off his armor. "Shut up and stay on guard," Champa snapped, his gaze fixed upward on the remnants of his now destroyed planet. "An attack like that won't be enough to kill him." His voice was low and tense, a seriousness that Kaba had rarely heard before. For Champa, that was saying a lot. Kaba glanced up at the sky, following the god's gaze. Bits of the destroyed planet still glowed in the dark void, casting an eerie light across the surface of their new location. "Where are we?" he asked, looking around at the icy blue terrain. "This is planet Neptune," Champa muttered, not taking his eyes off the sky. "Home of the Ice Djinn. It's where Frost, one of your Universe 6 friends from the Tournament of Power, was born." The mention of Frost sent a shiver down Kaba's spine. He knew Frost was a deceiver, but now wasn't the time to think about that. Kaba opened his mouth to respond, but before he could utter another word, a terrible sensation washed over him. It felt as if his body was frozen in place, his blood turning to ice. He looked down and saw a crimson line form across his chest. His eyes widened in horror as he tried to speak, but no sound came out. A second later, his head slid off his shoulders, severed cleanly from his body. The world seemed to slow down as Kaba's lifeless body fell to the ground. Blood splattered onto the icy surface, steaming as it touched the cold terrain. Kefla let out a scream of pure shock and rage as she stared at Kaba's head rolling on the ground, his eyes staring blankly into nothingness. Standing behind where Kaba had been was Mephistopheles, his smile twisted and malicious. His arm was raised, and the blade-like edge of his hand glistened with fresh blood. "That was almost too easy," he sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. Champa's eyes went wide, his breath catching in his throat. "What? How? He's too fast. Was that time skip?" he muttered in disbelief, staring at Kaba's headless body sprawled across the icy ground. But he didn't have time to process the loss. Mephistopheles had moved at a speed even Champa hadn't been able to fully perceive. Without a moment's hesitation, the demon turned his attention to Kefla. His eyes narrowed as he activated his time skip technique, bending reality around him as he moved 3 seconds into the future. To him, everything seemed to slow down, the world a frozen tableau. Kefla stood motionless, her face twisted in fury and shock. But she couldn't move, couldn't even think. Mephistopheles grinned, savoring his moment of power. 3 seconds is more than enough to finish you off, he murmured. He took a step forward, raising his hand to strike. But then, something unexpected happened. A massive hand reached out of nowhere, grabbing Mephistopheles by the throat and yanking him back through the folds of time. The demon's eyes widened in shock as he was forcefully dragged back into the present. The next thing he knew, his body was slammed into the ground with enough force to create a crater around him. Blood spewed from his mouth as he gasped for breath. Champa towered over him, his face contorted with rage. "I'm not letting you surprise me again, you bastard," Champa snarled. His aura flared violently, the sheer power of it making the air crackle and distort. He wasn't holding back, not anymore. The god didn't give Mephistopheles a chance to recover. He unleashed a rapid barrage of blows, his fists moving faster than the eye could see. Each punch landed with the force of a planet, shaking the very foundations of planet Neptune. The ground buckled and cracked under the impact, shockwaves spreading out and causing the entire planet to tremble. Kefla staggered back, struggling to keep her balance as the surface beneath her feet shifted and quaked. The two combatants clashed with such intensity that the very orbit of the planet was disrupted. Planet Neptune shifted, thrown off its path by the sheer force of their battle. For a moment, it seemed as if the planet itself would tear apart under the strain, but somehow it stabilized, snapping back into place. Champa, his chest heaving with exertion, leapt into the sky, his massive frame surprisingly agile. With a roar, he began to summon energy from all across Universe 6. The ground below him shook violently as an enormous sphere of energy began to form above his head. It pulsed with a sinister, violet glow. The Hakai energy, the power to destroy anything in existence. But this time, it was different. Champa's sphere kept growing, expanding far beyond its usual size until it was larger than the planet itself. He was drawing in negative energy from every corner of the universe: hate, pain, jealousy, and every dark emotion that mortals felt. The energy sphere crackled with a malevolent force, swirling with a power that was terrifying to behold. "Mephistopheles!" Champa roared, his voice echoing across the planet. "This is your end!" With a final cry, Champa hurled the massive sphere down toward the demon. It descended like a falling star, its terrible energy warping space around it. The planet's surface began to crumble under the sheer pressure of the attack. Mephistopheles lay on the ground, a twisted smile forming on his lips. "You really don't get it, do you?" he whispered, his voice eerily calm. He raised a single finger, pointing it toward the oncoming sphere of destruction. As the Hakai sphere made contact, something unimaginable happened. The immense ball of energy halted in midair, held back by just Mephistopheles' finger. He chuckled softly, the sound growing louder and more sinister by the second. "Hakai is my domain, you fool. How stupid of you to try and kill a primordial demon god with his own energy." He sneered up at Champa, his eyes glinting with dark amusement. With a single flick of his finger, Mephistopheles began to absorb the energy of the sphere. The Hakai energy, meant to erase anything it touched, flowed into him, disappearing into his body. Champa's eyes widened in horror as the sphere shrank smaller and smaller, its terrifying power being consumed by the demon. "This power belongs to me," Mephistopheles continued, his voice now brimming with new strength. "I don't know how a false god like you got your hands on it, but your imitation is pathetic." The last of the energy vanished into Mephistopheles, and he let out a satisfied sigh, flexing his arms as his aura flared brighter. "Thank you, Champa," he mocked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "You've just increased your chances of death by 100%. The scene shifted from Universe 6 back to the palace of the Omni King. But this wasn't the familiar grand entrance of the palace, with its shining floors and towering pillars leading to the Omni King's throne. No, this was a different place, an underground prison hidden beneath the palace, deep in the shadows. It was a grim, cold place, far removed from the splendor above. The walls were damp, carved from dark, unyielding stone, and the air was thick, almost suffocating. It was in this place, shackled by the chains of the multiverse, that Goku was held captive. Goku sat there, slumped against the wall, his wrists and ankles bound by glowing, ethereal chains that pulsed with a sinister energy. They were unlike any chains he had ever encountered, forged not just from metal, but from raw, cosmic power. Even though he was trapped, his eyes were wide open, forced to witness a nightmare that replayed endlessly before him. In front of him hovered a crystal ball, shimmering with an eerie light, showing a vision he could not escape. Earth, his home, exploding over and over again. Every time he blinked, the image would repeat, taunting him with the destruction of everything he loved. This was his punishment, a cruel torment designed by the Grand Priest himself. Pain coursed through Goku's body, but it was nothing compared to the agony of watching that scene. Each explosion, each eruption of fire and light shattered his heart anew. To him, everyone he cared about was gone. His family, Goten and Chi-Chi, his beloved granddaughter Pan, all obliterated. Even his closest allies, Vegeta and Broly, who had been on Earth when it happened, were caught in the blast. The vision showed no mercy. It spared no one. Goku's spirit, once unbreakable, was now hanging by a thread. He had nothing left, nothing to protect, nothing left to fight for. But beneath the despair, something else burned. A fierce, unrelenting rage. The anger inside him grew with each passing moment, and his thirst for revenge was the only thing that kept him from sinking into complete darkness. His hands clenched, his knuckles turning white, and his body trembled as he tried to contain the storm brewing within him. Goku's eyes, filled with tears of rage, glistened as he watched the vision play out once more. Then, unable to hold it in any longer, he screamed, his voice echoing through the prison corridors, reverberating off the cold, unfeeling walls. It was a cry of fury and anguish, a roar that shook the palace to its core. The power within him began to rise, surging through his veins like a wild, untamed beast. His ki erupted, bursting forth in a wave of divine energy that blazed with a blinding, golden light. The air crackled around him, and the ground beneath his feet trembled as if the entire universe could feel his wrath. The divine aura around him was overwhelming, radiating pure, unfiltered power. For a moment, it seemed as though nothing could contain him. The walls of the prison, built from the strongest materials in the multiverse, began to crack. A small fracture spread across one of the divine walls, a testament to the sheer force Goku was unleashing. But just as quickly as it had risen, his power was crushed. The chains binding him glowed brighter, their grip tightening around his limbs, forcing him back down. They pulsed with a dark, absorbing energy, draining the ki out of his body like a leech. Goku collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath as the chains continued to tighten. These were not just ordinary restraints, they were chains used to uphold the very fabric of the multiverse. To break them would require a power far beyond anything that had ever been seen, a power that transcended even the gods. Yet, despite the chains, despite the pain, Goku refused to be silent. His body shook, his muscles bulging against the restraints as he screamed, his voice raw and unhinged. "I will kill you," he shouted, his words echoing with a savage intensity. "You hear me, priest? Mark my words, I will gut you like a fish." His voice was hoarse, but the venom in his tone was unmistakable. His hands gripped the chains, his muscles straining as he tried in vain to pull them apart. Veins bulged on his arms, his eyes wild with fury. "I did nothing to you gods, but still you tried to kill me," he snarled, his voice laced with rage and disbelief. "Are you that threatened by me? No, I know what this is. You're scared that a mortal like me could surpass you. So this is how you keep me in line, huh?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it, only a cold, bitter edge. "Well, congratulations, priest. If I didn't want to kill you before, I do now." He spat, his voice dripping with hatred. "I will get vengeance. I will get my revenge. Do you hear me, priest?" The crystal ball flickered, showing the Earth's destruction once more, as if mocking him. But Goku didn't flinch. Instead, his eyes burned brighter, his spirit defiant even in the face of his torment. Every word he spoke was a promise, and every breath he took was fueled by his unyielding will to break free. He might have been shackled, his power drained, but his resolve was unbroken. The heavy iron door to the dark chamber creaked open, its echo cutting through the silence like a knife. A soft, almost taunting chuckle drifted through the shadows, followed by the steady, confident steps of the Grand Priest. He entered the room with an air of calm authority, his robe flowing gracefully behind him. A faint smile played on his lips, as if he was savoring a private joke, and his eyes gleamed with a cold, almost mocking amusement as they locked onto Goku. "Do you really think I fear you?" the Grand Priest asked, his voice smooth, unhurried, almost dismissive. He paused, letting the question hang in the air, savoring the tension in the room. Don't make me laugh. I'm simply following orders. This is what Grand Zeno wants, and I am merely assisting him in carrying out his plans. His smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. There was something cruel, almost sadistic, about the way he looked at Goku, like a cat toying with a trapped mouse. If it were up to me, you Saiyans would have been wiped out long ago. You turned my son against me. You corrupted him. Goku's eyes narrowed, confusion flickering across his face as he tried to process the Grand Priest's words. He knew that Whis was gone, that he had sacrificed himself, but what the Grand Priest was saying didn't make sense. What did he mean by Whis being a figment of his power? Goku struggled to find meaning in the priest's cryptic accusations, but his anger was too intense, too consuming to let him think clearly. The Grand Priest stepped closer, his expression darkening, and the mocking edge in his voice sharpened. You forced me to do something I never wanted. I had to erase him, my own son. Even though he was using my power, he had his own consciousness. And because of you, Saiyan, I was forced to remove it, to erase my most talented creation. Goku's fists tightened, his knuckles cracking under the pressure. The chains around his wrists glowed, tightening even more, as if reacting to his rising fury. He still couldn't fully understand what the Grand Priest was saying, but none of it mattered. All he knew was that the man in front of him was responsible for Whis' death, and that he was standing there, smug and confident, gloating over his victory. Goku's head snapped up, his eyes blazing with rage. What are you talking about? He snarled, his voice low and dangerous. Whis sacrificed himself. He wasn't some puppet of yours. He made his own choice. The words spilled out, raw and heated, but there was a hint of desperation beneath them. Goku's mind raced, trying to make sense of it all, but the Grand Priest's smirk only grew. Ah, but you see, that's where you're wrong, the Grand Priest said, his tone condescending. Whis was my creation, an extension of my will, given form and consciousness, but he was never meant to defy me, to betray his purpose, and yet, because of you, he did. I had no choice but to remove him, to erase what should never have existed in the first place. Goku's heart pounded, and his vision blurred with rage. None of it made sense, and he didn't care. The only thing he could think about was tearing the Grand Priest apart, ending the man who had taken so much from him. He strained against the chains, muscles bulging, veins throbbing. As he tried to push himself to his feet, the chains glowed brighter, their grip tightening. But he didn't care. He had to fight. He had to make the Grand Priest pay. If you're so confident, Goku growled, his voice shaking with barely contained fury. If you're so sure I'm no threat to you, then take these chains off and let's settle this right here, right now. His eyes bore into the Grand Priest, filled with a hatred so intense it felt like it could burn through steel. Come on, let's see how brave you are without your little tricks. The Grand Priest raised an eyebrow, almost as if amused by Goku's defiance. Oh, Goku, you truly are a fascinating creature, he said softly, tilting his head as if studying an interesting insect. Always so eager to fight, to struggle, even when you have no hope of winning. But tell me, why would I give you that satisfaction? He stepped closer, his eyes gleaming with a cold, calculated malice. These chains aren't just for show. They're designed to contain beings far more powerful than you. You could burn your soul to ashes trying to break free, and it would make no difference. Goku glared at him, his chest heaving. Each breath labored as he fought against the suffocating pressure of the chains. You're scared, he spat, his voice trembling with anger. You're scared of what I can do. That's why you're hiding behind these chains. If you weren't afraid, you'd face me. The Grand Priest's smile faded, replaced by a look of mild irritation. Scared? No, Goku. I'm simply practical. He took a step back, his robe rustling softly. You see, your power, while impressive, is nothing compared to mine. You're just a Saiyan who has lost his way, clinging to a hope that doesn't exist. But let me make one thing very clear. The Grand Priest's eyes narrowed slightly, his patience clearly wearing thin. You're nothing but an ant to me, Goku, he said, his voice dripping with disdain. I have far more important matters to attend to, like dealing with those primordial demon gods, who have also managed to escape their prison. Goku's lips curled into a smirk, even as his chest heaved with barely controlled fury. So you are scared, he taunted, his voice cutting through the heavy air like a blade. He knew what he was doing, poking at the Grand Priest's pride, trying to force his hand. Right now, he needed those chains off. Everything else could wait. Rage burned in his eyes, but beneath it was a calculated desperation. He had never felt such raw, unrelenting anger before, but he had nothing left to lose. Everyone he knew, his friends, his family, even the Dragon Balls, were gone, and with them, any hope of bringing them back. He was alone in a multiverse ruled by a deity who wanted him broken. There was no turning back. If this was going to be his final fight, then he was determined to make it one the multiverse would remember. He just needed one chance, a single moment where the chains weren't holding him down. The Grand Priest's smile faded, replaced by a look of mild interest. "Very well," he said, almost lazily, as if this were a minor inconvenience. "I'll entertain you for 5 minutes. Show me what you've got, Goku. Give me everything, so I can crush your soul using only 1% of my power." He raised a hand, and a flicker of energy danced around his fingers. "You couldn't touch me before, and now that I've regained 95% of my strength, combined with the new powers my children have granted me, your chances of defeating me have dropped to negative 100%. Goku's heart skipped a beat as he watched the Grand Priest's hand move. For a moment, there was a tense silence, and then, with a snap, the chains binding Goku's wrists and ankles began to glow. Slowly, they unraveled, dissolving into wisps of light before vanishing altogether. The moment the chains fell away, a rush of energy hit Goku like a tidal wave, flooding his body with power that had been held back for what felt like an eternity. His ki roared to life, a wild, untamed force that crackled around him, sparking with brilliant divine energy. He could feel it in every fiber of his being. The strength, the speed, the raw, unfiltered power coursing through him once more. It was as if he had been suffocating, and now, finally, he could breathe again. Goku clenched his fist, feeling the energy surge through his muscles, and a grin spread across his face. "Now this is what I'm talking about," he muttered, his voice low and full of exhilaration. The divine aura around him blazed, flickering between golden and crimson hues, as if reflecting the intensity of his emotions. The ground beneath his feet trembled, unable to withstand the sheer force radiating from his body. Without wasting another second, Goku launched himself upward, moving faster than a bolt of lightning. He shot through the ceiling of the prison, shattering the stone and metal as if they were nothing but paper. The palace above barely had time to react as Goku tore through layer after layer, blasting straight up towards the surface. He moved with such speed, such raw power, that the structure, forged from the strongest natural resources in the multiverse, crumbled under his might like brittle glass. The walls of the palace trembled as Goku burst through, his ki leaving a trail of golden light in his wake. He didn't even pause to catch his breath. His body was fueled by adrenaline and rage, and the only thing he could think about was the fight ahead. He had flown through the toughest material in Zeno's palace as if it was nothing but butter, and it felt incredible. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, he was free. He broke through to the surface, soaring high above the palace, the cold air rushing past him, carrying away the dust and debris that clung to his skin. The sky was vast and open, stretching out endlessly, but Goku's eyes were fixed on the ground below, where he knew the Grand Priest would be waiting. His aura flared even brighter, swirling around him in a chaotic, mesmerizing dance of light and energy. It was a spectacle that could be seen across the heavens, a signal to anyone watching that Goku was back, and he was ready to fight. Hovering in mid-air, Goku clenched his fists, the aura around him pulsating with sheer, unrestrained power. "All right, Grand Priest," he said, his voice echoing through the sky. "You wanted me to show you everything I've got. Then get ready, because I'm not holding back." In an instant, Goku's ki erupted like a blazing sun that shot waves of energy across the multiverse. The very air trembled under the force of his power, rippling out like an unstoppable tidal wave. For a moment, Zeno's realm itself seemed to shudder, a cosmic quake that rolled through the space-time fabric before calming. But Goku was only getting started. His ki continued to rise, his energy spiking higher and higher with every second as his transformation progressed. In a brilliant flash, Goku ascended to his perfected Ultra Instinct form, his silver hair glowing under the pale light, his eyes fierce and focused. His aura flared with an intense, pure energy, shimmering like liquid silver and crackling with streaks of lightning that flashed across the night sky. Even the stars seemed to dim in the face of his overwhelming radiance. But Goku didn't stop there. With a fierce cry, he activated his Kaioken technique, pushing it to a staggering 50 times multiplier, magnifying the power of his Ultra Instinct form 50-fold. His aura blazed even brighter, stretching outward from Xeno's realm, sending shockwaves rippling through the universe itself. The heavens shook, and the ground below him cracked and fractured under the sheer weight of his unleashed energy. The Grand Priest observed with a calm, almost bored expression, but there was a flicker of intrigue in his eyes. "Impressive," he said, his voice laced with the faintest hint of mockery, but his gaze narrowed slightly, as if he saw through Goku's every move. "Don't waste my time, Sane," he said dismissively. "I know you're holding back. Surely you know that your only chance lies in the Omni form. Otherwise, this fight will be over in seconds." Goku grit his teeth, frustration flashing across his face. "I can't," he replied, his voice laced with bitterness. "Ever since Xeno drained my ki, I haven't been able to access that power. At first, I thought it was just the chains holding me back. But even after being released, it's like I'm cut off from it." He muttered the last part to himself, his mind racing. "If I can't use it, what about Vegeta? If he's in the same situation, then we're in serious trouble." The Grand Priest raised an eyebrow, his expression somewhere between amusement and disappointment. "Oh, well then, is there even a reason for you to continue this charade? Not that your Omni form would pose any real threat to me. Of course, I'm simply saying that it's the only chance you have, no matter how small that chance is." His lips curled into a smug smile. "So then, go ahead and do your best." A smirk crept across Goku's face as he leveled a fierce glare at the Grand Priest. "We'll see about that," he said, his voice steady, unyielding. "I thought you deities would have learned by now. Never underestimate a Sane." In an instant, he vanished from sight, moving faster than a beam of light, faster than thought itself. He closed the distance between them in a fraction of a nanosecond, his fist drawn back, muscles bulging as he poured every ounce of his strength into the punch. He swung with all his might, a blow so powerful it created a shockwave that shot outward, rippling across the multiverse. Planets nearby were jostled in their orbits, briefly knocked off their axes by the force of Goku's strike before they slowly realigned. But the Grand Priest didn't flinch. He caught Goku's punch effortlessly, with one hand, his expression calm and unfazed. His other hand was tucked casually behind his back, as if to mock Goku's effort. He gave Goku a faint smile, his grip as steady and unmovable as steel. The blow should have been enough to topple mountains, to shake the foundations of the cosmos themselves. Yet, to the Grand Priest, it was nothing more than a passing breeze. Goku's energy crackled around them, but the Grand Priest didn't waver, didn't even acknowledge the sheer power behind the punch. Goku pulled back, his teeth clenched in frustration, but his spirit remained unbroken. He could feel the raw power coursing through him, amplified by every close brush with death he'd endured, every hard-fought battle that had pushed him to the edge. His Ultra Instinct, Kaioken, every form he had achieved, all of them were stronger than they'd ever been before. Yet somehow, standing here with the Grand Priest effortlessly holding him in place, Goku realized that even this newfound strength barely scratched the surface of what he was up against. For this wasn't just any opponent. The Grand Priest was the embodiment of power, a being so far above mortal strength that even Goku's most powerful forms felt like raindrops against a hurricane. The Grand Priest's grip tightened around Goku's fist, and before Goku could even register what was happening, he was launched across space with a force that felt like the universe itself had punched him. The speed was beyond comprehension, faster than instant transmission, faster than light. He was hurled like a comet, blurring through the fabric of space. Goku's body tore through 5 planets in a row, each one shattering on impact and exploding in a burst of rock and fire behind him. Each collision sent tremors rippling through the cosmos, until finally, Goku was flung straight into the heart of a blazing sun. This was no ordinary sun. It was massive, a colossal star that burned with a fierce, searing heat. The inferno engulfed him instantly, its flames licking hungrily around his body. But in the heart of that star, a sound began to echo, rumbling louder and louder, a yell that cut through the silence of space itself. It wasn't a scream of pain. No, it was something deeper, a roar of pure, unbridled anger. "Kaioken, times 100, Goku's voice bellowed, reverberating through the burning core of the sun. His ki exploded outward, a radiant burst of energy that snuffed out the flames around him, extinguishing the sun in a single, blinding flash. The star's light vanished, leaving behind nothing but darkness, and Goku stood there, his aura blazing like a second sun, his strength surging to new, impossible levels. A faint smile crept across the Grand Priest's face as he watched from afar, clearly intrigued by the unexpected display of power. So he thought, this Saiyan is still full of surprises. In the next instant, the Grand Priest was gone, vanishing from his spot in a blur and appearing before Goku in a flash of light. His fist was already drawn back, aimed for a devastating blow straight to Goku's core. But Goku's reflexes kicked in, and he caught the Grand Priest's fist with both hands, his muscles straining to absorb the impact. The sheer force of it sent Goku skidding backward through the void of space, though he managed to hold his ground. He's still stronger than me, Goku realized, gritting his teeth as his arms shook from the Grand Priest's overpowering strength. But he pushed the thought aside. He couldn't afford any hesitation now. To regain his momentum, Goku gripped the very air itself, a feat that defied mortal understanding, and pushed himself forward. He darted back into the fray with blinding speed, performing a rapid slide step, his afterimage technique creating 6 clones that surrounded the Grand Priest from all angles. Each clone charged in simultaneously, fists ready, their movements perfectly coordinated to overwhelm their target. The Grand Priest laughed, a low, mocking sound. With a flick of his wrist, he summoned a shimmering sphere of energy that burst outward, consuming each clone in a bright flash. But before the light had even faded, Goku was already above him, hands cupped as he channeled his energy. Kamehameha, he roared, firing a massive beam of pure power down toward the Grand Priest. The Grand Priest barely glanced up. Predictable, he muttered, catching the blast in his palm as if it were nothing more than a ball tossed by a child. With a twist of his wrist, he redirected the energy back at Goku. Goku quickly braced himself, catching his own Kamehameha blast mid-air, his muscles tensing under the force of it. With a swift movement, he slapped the blast downward, where it streaked away into the depths of space before exploding in a dazzling display that lit up an entire galaxy. The shockwave rippled across light years, shaking stars and scattering stardust in its wake. The two fighters hovered in space, locked in a cosmic dance of strength and willpower. The scale of their battle was beyond anything the universe had seen. But despite Goku's fierce attacks, it was clear who held the upper hand. The Grand Priest was calm, collected, his face barely showing a hint of strain. He hadn't even tapped into the power he had recently regained from the angels. He was holding back, barely using a fraction of his true strength. At this moment, he was fighting with only about 7% of his full power. But Goku had no idea. Breathing heavily, Goku hovered in place, his chest rising and falling as the reality of the situation began to set in. His arms ached, his mind raced, and for the first time, he felt a creeping doubt begin to settle in his thoughts. He's really strong, he muttered, his voice strained. What? Have we awakened? He clenched his fist, frustration and worry mingling as he remembered the plan he and his allies had once shared. This was supposed to be a team effort, he thought. Together, maybe we could have stood a chance. But now, I'm all alone. He exhaled, his gaze hardening as he looked back at the Grand Priest, who hovered there, completely unbothered, as if the entire battle was a minor inconvenience. What can I do by myself? Goku wondered, his heart pounding as the weight of his own limitations pressed down on him. Is it even worth fighting at this point? In the depths of the other world, past the shimmering lights of King Yema's towering palace, and beyond the serene fields where King Kai tended his planet, lay a region most beings feared. Hell. Unlike the bright realms where souls found rest, this was a realm for the most feared and the fallen. A dark, endless stretch where those who had wreaked havoc in life were stripped of their bodies and left to wander as wisps, mere shadows of themselves. It was here, in this shadowed abyss, that Gohan found himself. When he had died, Gohan had expected a kind of peace, maybe even a gentle reward. After all, he'd spent his life protecting Earth, fighting off enemies that could destroy whole worlds, and standing by his father, Goku, to defend the multiverse from threats that could wipe out existence itself. But the Kais in the other world had taken a different view. To them, Gohan was no hero. He was a rebel, a Saiyan who had dared to rise against the gods. In their judgment, his battles against beings of immense power had been an unforgivable defiance. And so, instead of peace, Gohan was sentenced to the harsh shadows of hell, his heroic deeds overlooked, his sacrifice ignored. Now, stripped of his physical form, He floated through the twisted landscape, drifting through a churning, restless void. Without a body, he felt his very soul stretched thin, as though it were being tested, worn down, torn apart by the swirling dark energies around him. His only anchor in this endless night were his memories, images of his family, friends, and every battle he'd fought, replayed in his mind like lifelines, keeping him from slipping into despair. Yet, even here, he refused to give in. He clung to a fierce resolve to find a way back to his body, back to life. He would fight, even if he had to claw his way out of the depths of hell itself. Then, one day, while his mind wandered in the chaotic energies of hell, a presence flickered nearby, a familiar, comforting energy he hadn't sensed in what felt like an eternity. He recognized it immediately. King Kai, suddenly, as if answering his unspoken thought, Gohan felt his essence solidify. The shadows around him seemed to recede, and before he could fully comprehend it, he was standing on solid ground again, his own 2 feet planted firmly beneath him. He glanced down in astonishment. His body was back, arms, legs, everything, right down to the feel of his Sion energy humming beneath his skin. And standing there in front of him was King Kai, a broad grin stretching across his face, though there was an edge of worry in his eyes. "Gohan," King Kai called, his voice warm yet hushed. "Glad to see you're still, well, in one piece, sort of." Gohan blinked, still dazed, then looked back at King Kai with surprise. "King Kai, what happened? How am I back in my body?" King Kai glanced around nervously, adjusting his sunglasses as if wary of unseen ears listening in. Let's just say I pulled a few strings," he said, his voice low. "But listen, this isn't permanent, Gohan. They don't actually want you to have your body back." Gohan's face tightened with a mix of anger and confusion. "But why? After everything I've done to protect Earth, to save the multiverse, doesn't that mean anything to them?" King Kai sighed deeply, his expression turning weary. "It should," he agreed, nodding slowly. "But the deities running things here, well, they see it differently. They hold you responsible for standing up against the gods. To them, all your deeds don't make up for the fact that you were part of what they view as a rebellion." He looked up, his eyes brightening with a glimmer of determination. "But I have a plan." Gohan's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp with a mixture of curiosity and doubt. "A plan?" "Yes," King Kai nodded, a spark of excitement lighting up his face. "A tournament, a battle royale right here in Otherworld. If you can win, there's a chance the deities might let you keep your body." He rubbed his hands together, clearly energized by the idea. "Think about it. If you defeat the strongest fighters from every corner of the Otherworld, prove yourself against the best. They can't ignore a victory like that, not with everyone watching." Gohan felt the familiar heat of determination ignite in his chest. This was the path back, a way to finally prove his worth and regain his place. "All right, what do I need to do?" King Kai straightened, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "You'll be going in as my fighter, like your father did before you. But there's a catch." His mouth twisted into a scowl. "You're restricted. Only your Super Saiyan form is allowed. The higher-ups say it's because you're too dangerous at full strength." He made air quotes with his fingers, frustration clear on his face. "They know the power you hold, Gohan. But I know that even with this restriction, you're more than capable." Gohan's fists clenched, and his face set an unshakable resolve. "All right, King Kai, I'll do it, whatever it takes." The months of preparation felt like an eternity, but finally, the day of the tournament arrived. The Otherworld arena was packed with energy, the air thick with both excitement and tension. Thousands of powerful spirits, gods, and deities from every realm and corner of the afterlife filled the vast grandstands, each one eager to witness the spectacle unfolding on the golden sands below. In the center of it all stood Gohan, clad in a striking black and purple gi that stood out boldly against the arena's shimmering sands. He could feel the eyes of the higher deities on him, each gaze heavy with judgment, suspicion, and for some, barely concealed hostility. From the stands, one familiar figure watched Gohan with particular intensity, Pikkon, the warrior who had once fought Goku in a similar tournament. His sharp eyes narrowed as he studied Gohan's stance, his aura, the calm but fierce look in his eyes. The resemblance to another fighter he had faced in the past couldn't be ignored. "That man, he looks like Goku," Pikkon mused, his mind racing with questions. And that energy, could they be related? But before he could dwell on it any further, the atmosphere shifted as a dark, malicious energy surged through the arena. From across the field, several familiar and sinister presences began to materialize, each one more menacing than the last. The deities had summoned opponents for Gohan, and these weren't just any fighters. His old enemies, now revived as contestants in this deadly game, appeared before him one by one. The first was Kid Buu, his small, chaotic form brimming with that wild, uncontrollable energy. His eyes glinted with mad delight, a twisted smile stretching across his face as he spotted Gohan. Gohan, he muttered, a crazed grin spreading across his face as he bounced on his feet, his pink aura flickering like an unstable flame. Wonder if you'll scream the same way this time. His voice oozed malice, each word a taunt, laced with venomous excitement. Then another figure stepped forward, a tall, imposing figure with a cold smile and gleaming green skin. Cell crossed his arms, a look of smug confidence plastered on his face. He glanced over Gohan with casual contempt, a mocking grin tugging at his lips. "So," Cell sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "it seems someone finally managed to kill you, Gohan." His eyes glinted with amusement. How disappointing, after all that potential. Gohan's gaze flickered between them, his face a mask of steely resolve. Kid Buu cackled wildly, bouncing on his feet with manic glee. "Let's see if you still scream the same, Gohan," he taunted, his eyes glinting with a fierce hunger, his words thick with malice. Gohan stood firm, his expression calm, meeting their taunts with a look of sheer determination. "I'm not here to play games," he replied evenly. "If you're my opponents, then I'll just have to take you both down." From the sidelines, King Kai's voice rang out over the roar of the crowd, though barely audible. "Remember, Gohan, Super Saiyan only. No transformations beyond that." Gohan glanced back and gave King Kai a single nod, a look of reassurance flashing in his eyes. His heartbeat slowed, his mind sharpened. He'd fought and defeated these foes before. He'd do it again, even with his power restricted. As he powered up to Super Saiyan, a brilliant golden aura flared around him, enveloping him in a fiery glow. His hair flashed into a shimmering blonde, his muscles surging with energy, as his power radiated across the arena, making even the deities murmur with interest. The arena fell silent as the referee, a broad, red-skinned ogre with a voice that boomed like thunder, raised his hand. "Fighters, begin!" In a blur of motion, Kid Buu launched himself at Gohan, his limbs stretching and twisting in unnatural angles, his fists swinging with deadly speed as he aimed for Gohan's face. Gohan's reflexes kicked in instantly. He sidestepped, fluid and calm, letting Buu's wild punches slice through the air beside him. In a single, well-aimed counter, Gohan slammed his fist into Buu's side, sending him flying backward with a powerful shockwave. Buu spun through the air before crashing hard into the ground, a cloud of dust and debris exploding around him. But before Gohan could even lower his fist, Cell surged forward, a gleaming smirk plastered on his face. His energy flared as he went in for a brutal kick aimed straight at Gohan's ribs. Gohan ducked smoothly, sweeping Cell's legs in one swift motion and catching him off guard. With a hard slam, he brought his elbow down onto Cell's back, sending him staggering forward with a shocked grunt. "How?" Cell snarled, struggling to regain his balance, his face twisted in frustration. He clutched his side, glaring daggers at Gohan. "You're still just as annoying as ever." Gohan allowed himself a small smirk. "And you're still as predictable as ever, Cell." From the grandstands, the crowd watched with mixed reactions. A few of the gods scoffed, unimpressed, while others looked on with faint intrigue. To most, Gohan was nothing but a condemned warrior, a Saiyan who had gone too far and was now getting a second chance he didn't deserve. But King Kai watched him with a knowing smile, completely unfazed. His faith in Gohan hadn't wavered for a second. Pikan, too, was watching closely, his gaze steady and unblinking. Every move Gohan made, every step, every strike. Pikan studied it all, his sharp mind noting the skill and focus behind each motion. This wasn't just any fighter. This Saiyan is different, he thought. He's got something special, something I've only seen in one other warrior. Before long, both Kid Buu and Cell were charging at Gohan again, their energies blazing as they closed in from opposite sides. But this time, Gohan's eyes narrowed, and he saw every move coming, clear as day. Years of battling foes even more powerful than these two had honed his instincts to razor-sharp precision. He could practically predict their attacks before they even made them. He'd achieved a level of calm and control that only came from countless battles, even facing off against gods of destruction. In truth, Gohan knew that even in his base form, he was leagues beyond the likes of Cell and Kid Buu. Just going Super Saiyan was, for him, a mere formality, a stretch, a show of respect for King Kai's trust and faith. But he knew better than to reveal his full strength. The deities knew he was powerful. After all, he'd faced down gods of destruction, but just how powerful, that they did not know. And to secure their approval, to gain their permission to keep his body, he had to keep it that way. So for now, he'd hold back, concealing the true depths of his power as he fought. In an instant, Gohan's hands shot out, intercepting the fists of both Kid Buu and Cell with effortless precision. His grip tightened, halting their attacks as if they were nothing more than playful jabs. The crowd watched, transfixed, as Gohan brought both his opponents' heads together in a brutal clash. The crack of impact echoed throughout the arena as the two former villains' heads collided, and before they could even register what had happened, Gohan hurled them downwards. They crashed into the center of the ring with such force that the ground split beneath them, a massive crater opening up in the middle of the arena. Dust billowed from the impact, and a hush fell over the crowd as they realized what had just occurred. The battlefield itself had been shattered, divided by the sheer power of Gohan's attack. To the crowd's shock, Kid Buu and Cell lay motionless at the bottom of the crater. The two notorious fighters, once terrors of Earth and Otherworld alike, had been rendered unconscious by a single strike, each from the warrior they had tormented in life. The announcer stood frozen, his eyes wide, as he glanced between the unconscious forms of Buu and Cell and the calm figure of Gohan standing at the edge of the crater. He struggled for words, his voice wavering. There you have it, folks. This fight has concluded rather quickly. He glanced around, still stunned. The winner of this tournament is the newcomer, Son Gohan. There was a stunned silence, the crowd too astounded to even cheer. How could one person possess so much strength? The very idea was unheard of. Though no one voiced it aloud, that thought rippled through the minds of every onlooker, each deity and spirit silently questioning how a single fighter could display such overwhelming power. Even King Kai, watching with pride, was taken aback by the ease of Gohan's victory. He'd known Gohan would prevail, but to defeat both Buu and Cell in mere moments in his base Super Saiyan form was far beyond his expectations. Goku, even at Super Saiyan 3, hadn't been able to finish Kid Buu, yet Gohan had done it here without breaking a sweat. In King Kai's mind, it was clear. Gohan hadn't even needed his transformation to win. Gohan's original plan had backfired. He'd held back, trying to keep his true strength under wraps to avoid drawing attention. But his sheer force had already outpaced his intentions. By crushing two of the most powerful beings in the other world, he had set himself apart in a way no one could ignore. King Kai snapped out of his amazement and rushed down to the ring, a wide grin spreading across his face. "Gohan, you did it!" he called, his voice filled with pride. The crowd began to murmur, their astonishment giving way to an impressed buzz. A few minutes passed, and King Kai turned to the stands where the higher deities and Kais sat. He cleared his throat, his voice steady as he addressed them, making sure his words rang out across the arena. "Today, Son Gohan has proven himself," he declared, his tone full of purpose. "A warrior of honor and strength, worthy to keep his body in Otherworld, just as we agreed." He glanced toward the Grand Kai, then the other Kais. "Let this be known to all. A promise is a promise." King Kai's plan was brilliantly executed. By making the deal public, he'd ensured that the Kais would be bound by their word, their own reputations now hanging on the commitment they'd made to Gohan. In Otherworld, reputation was everything, and going back on a public deal would be unheard of. A decision was swiftly reached, granting Gohan the right to keep his body. King Kai's gamble had paid off. Days passed, and soon, Gohan had settled into life in Otherworld. He spent his time training at King Kai's home, though not the small, familiar planet where his father had trained. This time, he was at King Kai's other home, a secluded retreat deep in Otherworld, far from the usual distractions. As a Kai, King Kai could travel freely between the realms, and here, Gohan found an ideal place to refine his skills in peace. 1 month drifted by in a blur of focused training. Gohan stood silently on the serene hillside in King Kai's secluded retreat, his gaze fixed on the infinite horizon of the other world. The setting sun painted the sky in a mesmerizing blend of orange and pink, while a gentle breeze rustled the grass at his feet. Yet amidst all this tranquility, Gohan felt a storm brewing within him, a restlessness that refused to fade. "It's been 2 months since my death," he murmured, his voice tinged with frustration. He clenched his fist, his nails digging into his palms as his thoughts turned bitter. "I defeated Cell. I defeated Kid Buu. Fuse that once pushed me to my limit fell with ease, yet here I am, stuck, feeling incomplete." The memory of his death gnawed at him like an insatiable predator. "How pathetic," he spat, the words drenched in self-loathing. "All that training, all that power, and I still fell. What good is my strength if I can't even protect myself when it matters?" His thoughts turned to his father, Goku, who had shattered every conceivable limit, mastering techniques like Ultra Instinct 3 and the fabled Omni form. Goku had ascended to heights that Gohan could scarcely imagine. And yet, that wasn't all. Goku had taken the Kaioken technique to its 100th level, pushing his body beyond mortal comprehension. Vegeta, Goku, even Broly, Gohan muttered, their names heavy on his tongue. "They've all surpassed me in every way. Have I truly reached my peak? Is this it for me?" His voice cracked, but he swallowed his despair, turning it into resolve. "No," he said, the word carrying the weight of a vow. His fist trembled with renewed determination. "I won't accept this. Even if it takes 1,000 years, I'll surpass them all. I'll surpass everyone." His thoughts drifted to the inactive Dragon Balls, their magic sealed for a millennium. "I can't rely on being revived," he reasoned, the cold truth settling over him. By the time the Dragon Balls could be used again, everyone he loved, his mother, Piccolo, even his daughter, Pan, would be gone. "No," he repeated, shaking his head. "When their time comes, I'll be here, waiting, and they'll see what I've become. Father will see." He inhaled deeply, calming the fire in his chest. "Father keeps pushing his limits," he mused aloud. "But have I really pushed mine?" "Lost in thought, are we?" A familiar voice broke through his reverie. Gohan turned to see King Kai approaching, adjusting his glasses with his usual jovial grin. "Hey, King Kai," Gohan said, offering a faint smile. "Yeah, I guess I am." King Kai's antennae twitched with curiosity. "What's on your mind?" "I can't shake this feeling," Gohan admitted, glancing at the horizon. "Even after everything, even defeating the god of destruction, I feel like something's missing." King Kai raised an eyebrow, muttering under his breath. Such a greedy boy. Not many can say they've defeated a god of destruction and lived, or, well, not lived, to tell the tale. And yet, here you are, still unsatisfied. If that's not Goku's son, I don't know what is. Gohan didn't seem to notice King Kai's muttering. Instead, he continued, "I was killed in a way that doesn't reflect what it means to be a Saiyan. Even now, in death, I want to push past my limits, to reach a level of power that I can finally be proud of, maybe even surpass my father in the process." King Kai let out a hearty chuckle, shaking his head. "That's quite the goal you've set for yourself, Gohan. Frankly, it might be impossible. Do you know what your father has become?" He gestured animatedly. "I wasn't just cooking and reading adult magazines up here. You know, I've been watching the chaos you Saiyans stir up in the universe. Your father's power is, well, let's just say it's beyond mortal comprehension." Gohan's brows furrowed. "I've seen some of what he's accomplished, but..." King Kai cut him off, raising a finger. "Let me put it this way. The Omniform isn't just another level of strength. It's the final destination for all deities, gods of destruction, even angels. Achieving it means entering the realm of the Celestials, the domain of Zeno himself." "Zeno," Gohan's voice trailed off, the name carrying an almost sacred weight. "Exactly," King Kai said, nodding. "Yet somehow, your father and Vegeta managed to reach this level. Mortals, no less. True, they're not on Zeno's level. No Omni is equal in strength, but they've stepped into a realm few can even dream of. Surpassing that, well, that means you're aiming to find what lies beyond Omni, if such a thing even exists." Gohan's eyes narrowed, his resolve hardening. "Then that's what I'll do." He turned back to the horizon, his mind racing with possibilities. King Kai sighed, his usual humor replaced by a rare solemnity. "Gohan," he said carefully, "you're chasing the impossible. But then again, if anyone can make the impossible possible, it's a Saiyan." King Kai adjusted his glasses, watching Gohan with a thoughtful expression. "Well, I'm not saying surpassing an Omni is a realistic goal, but surpassing your father might be. At least by a sliver. As I mentioned earlier, not all Omni titles are created equal in strength. There's always a gap, and sometimes gaps can be bridged. Gohan's face lit up with determination. So you think there's a chance? King Kai chuckled, his antennae twitching. Let's not get carried away. But yes, there's hope. Take Broly, for instance, that brute of a Saiyan. Sometimes I wonder where his boundless power comes from. His energy doesn't follow the rules of divine beings. His transformations are entirely unique to him. In all my eons of watching the universe, I've never seen anything like them. He paused, his tone growing more serious. That alone proves there's a vast, unknown source of power out there, something we don't understand. Maybe Broly draws from it instinctively, and maybe, just maybe, you can find it too. Gohan's fists clenched. If Broly can do it, I can. Do you think you could help me? King Kai grinned wide. Help you? I can try. After all, you're already dead? What's the worst that could happen? I won't have to worry about breaking your body. Gohan smirked. That's comforting. King Kai's tone shifted to one of wisdom. But let me be clear. True strength isn't just about raw power. It's about understanding and control. When you truly understand something, whether it's a technique, your limits, or even yourself, you can reconstruct it. That's the key to surpassing anything. Got it? I understand. Gohan replied firmly. I'm ready to do whatever it takes. Later that evening, the Grand Kai hosted a lavish feast in Gohan's honor. The Grand Kai's estate buzzed with excitement, the grand hall filled with warriors from across the other world. Tables groaned under the weight of platters piled high with food, exotic fruits, roasted meats, and desserts that sparkled like stars. Music filled the air, and laughter echoed off the high ceilings. Gohan sat at the head of the table, honored but distracted. The warriors around him swapped stories of their battles, their voices brimming with pride and camaraderie. But Gohan's mind was elsewhere. He smiled politely and raised his glass when prompted, but he couldn't shake the words King Kai had spoken. Midway through the festivities, Gohan quietly excused himself. I'll be back, he said, slipping away from the crowded hall. No one noticed as he disappeared into the Grand Kai's sprawling estate. The quiet corridors were a stark contrast to the lively celebration. Gohan wandered aimlessly, his footsteps echoing softly. His eyes scanned the rows of artifacts, scrolls, and ancient relics that lined the walls. The place felt like a treasure trove of forgotten wisdom, a sanctuary for those seeking enlightenment. Otherworld is more than just a place for the dead, Gohan whispered to himself. It's a realm of endless knowledge, a place where people can perfect their techniques for eternity. If I'm going to push my limits, the answers might be right here. He paused before a towering shelf filled with scrolls, their bindings faded and cracked with age. One scroll, tucked away on a high shelf, caught his eye. Its edges were frayed, and the faint glow of its faded gold lettering piqued his curiosity. What's this? Gohan murmured. Stretching upward, he grabbed the scroll and brought it down carefully. The 101 levels of Kaioken and the origins of Ki, he read aloud, his brow furrowing in interest. This could be something. He found a quiet corner and sat cross-legged on the polished floor. Carefully, he unrolled the scroll, the parchment crackling faintly in the silence. The first few pages detailed the history of Ki manipulation, describing how mortals first learned to harness their energy. It was fascinating. But as Gohan turned the pages, something unusual caught his attention. One page looked far older than the rest. The parchment was darker, its edges rough, and it was inscribed with strange glowing symbols, unlike any language Gohan recognized. It almost seemed alive, as though the symbols pulsed faintly with energy. What is this? Gohan whispered, leaning closer. The symbols seemed to shift under his gaze, rearranging themselves into a form he could understand. He blinked, startled, but before he could question it, the words revealed themselves. Gohan's fingers trembled slightly as he traced the words on the aged scroll. The concept of the 101 levels of Kaioken intrigued him beyond measure. It wasn't just a technique, something you activated for a burst of power. It was a state of existence, a transformation of self. It is said that one who achieves this form can tap into powers beyond mortal limits, Gohan read aloud, his voice tinged with awe. His eyes scanned further down the page, stopping at a chilling sentence. But the 101st level remains a mystery, its secrets lost to time. At the bottom of the page, a handwritten note caught his attention, a training method used by Zeno's father to prepare the new king of everything. Gohan's heart skipped a beat. Zeno's father? He muttered under his breath, disbelief spreading across his face. I didn't even know Zeno had a father. I thought Zeno was the beginning, the king of everything. The one who created all. He sat back on his heels, his mind racing. This explains so much, he whispered to himself, his voice growing louder as his thoughts connected. This explains why Zeno acts so childlike. Because he is a child. If he has a father, then that means... His musings were cut short by the sound of footsteps echoing down the hall. Gohan's head snapped up, and he quickly rolled the scroll shut, holding it tightly behind his back. A familiar voice called out, "There you are, Gohan!" King Kai exclaimed as he entered the room, adjusting his glasses. "I was wondering where you'd wandered off to. The feast isn't much fun without the guest of honor." "Sorry," Gohan replied, forcing a sheepish grin. "I got sidetracked." King Kai raised an eyebrow, noticing Gohan's awkward stance and the scroll partially hidden behind him. "What have you got there?" he asked, his tone tinged with suspicion. For a moment, Gohan hesitated. He glanced at the scroll in his hands, then at King Kai's curious expression. With a sigh, he revealed it. "I found this," he admitted. "It talks about the 101 levels of Kaioken." King Kai's jovial expression vanished in an instant. His antennae twitched, and his eyes narrowed as he took the scroll from Gohan. He unrolled it carefully, his gaze scanning the ancient text. Concern crept across his face as he read. "Where did you find this?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. "On one of the shelves here," Gohan replied, gesturing to the rows of scrolls and artifacts. "What does it mean? Do you know anything about it?" King Kai shook his head slowly, his usual lighthearted demeanor replaced with a rare gravity. "This is very old and very dangerous. The Kaioken you know is already a high-risk technique. Pushing it further, let alone through 101 levels, could be catastrophic." Gohan's brows furrowed in determination. "But what if I could master it?" he pressed, his voice firm. "If this is something that could make me stronger, strong enough to make a real difference, shouldn't I try?" King Kai let out a long, exasperated sigh. "A real difference in what, Gohan? You're dead, remember? It's not like you have a universe to save right now. That doesn't mean I should stop growing," Gohan argued. "Even in death, I can still push my limits. I have to. I've come too far to just settle." King Kai shook his head, muttering under his breath. "You Saiyans, always looking for the next mountain to climb. Listen to me, Gohan. Even the gods have limits. Mortals were never meant to wield this kind of power. It will destroy you." Gohan crossed his arms, his gaze unwavering. "I'm already dead," he countered. "What do I have to lose?" King Kai's eyes widened in disbelief. "Don't joke about that," he snapped, his voice rising. "Just because you're in the other world doesn't mean you're invincible. There are consequences for pushing too far, even here." Gohan held King Kai's gaze, his voice calm but resolute. "I understand the risks, but I need to try. I can't ignore this. Please, help me understand." For a moment, the room fell silent. King Kai stared at Gohan, his face a mixture of frustration and reluctant admiration. Finally, he let out a groan and rubbed his temples. "Fine," King Kai relented, "but we proceed with extreme caution. Do you hear me?" Gohan nodded, his expression serious. "I hear you." As King Kai rolled the scroll back up, he thought to himself, what's the harm? It's not like he'll ever get past the 30th level, let alone the 101st. This will keep him busy, and eventually he'll see it's hopeless. That should get this obsession out of his system. With a sigh, King Kai tucked the scroll under his arm. "All right, Gohan, let's see if you have what it takes." Over the next few days, King Kai immersed himself in studying the ancient scroll, his expression shifting between fascination and deep concentration. Occasionally, he muttered to himself, scribbling notes as he pieced together the advanced concepts buried within the text. Gohan, eager to begin, waited patiently, though his anticipation was palpable. Finally, King Kai approached Gohan with a determined look. "All right, Gohan, listen closely. The basics of Kaioken are the same as what I taught your father back on my planet. But to go beyond that, especially to reach the higher levels described in this scroll, you'll need to master Ki on an entirely new level." Gohan nodded attentively. "I'm ready. Tell me what I need to do." King Kai adjusted his glasses and began his explanation. Ki isn't just energy that fuels your attacks or strengthens your body. It's something more fundamental, more elemental. According to the scroll, it exists beyond life itself. It's a force that connects everything, the living, the non-living, even time and space. To control it at the level this technique demands, you'll need to understand it deeply, as if it were a part of you. Gohan's expression hardened with resolve. "I'd like to try." King Kai gave a small, approving nod. "Good. Let's start with the foundation." The training began immediately. King Kai laid out the basics, revisiting the fundamentals of the Kaioken technique to ensure Gohan had a strong base. They started with holding Kaioken at modest levels, ×3, then ×8. For days, Gohan focused entirely on strengthening his control in his base form, working tirelessly to build his endurance and precision. Feel the flow of your ki, King Kai instructed as Gohan stood in a clearing, his aura blazing red with the power of Kaioken. Don't force it. Let it move with you, through you. Remember, it's not a tool to control, it's a part of you. Gohan closed his eyes, his body trembling slightly from the strain. His breathing was steady and his focus unwavering. The crimson aura around him pulsed rhythmically, almost as if it were alive. Slowly, the tension in his muscles eased as he synchronized with his ki. Good, Gohan! King Kai cheered, clapping his hands. You're starting to get the hang of it. Though exhausted, Gohan managed a small smile. I think I'm starting to understand. As days turned into weeks, Gohan's progress became undeniable. He began experimenting with merging the power of his Super Saiyan forms into his base state, attempting to hold that immense energy without transforming. It was grueling work, but Gohan's determination never wavered. You're doing something incredible, King Kai remarked one evening as Gohan sat under a tree, sweat dripping from his brow. I've never seen anyone combine energies like this, not even your father. Gohan leaned back against the tree, his breathing heavy but steady. Thanks, King Kai, but I still have a long way to go. If I want to reach the 101st level, I'll need a lot more power. One quiet afternoon, as the two rested in the shade, Gohan broke the silence with a thoughtful question. King Kai, do you think it's possible to reach the 101st level? King Kai stroked his chin, his antennae twitching slightly. Honestly, I don't know, Gohan. According to the scroll, it's never been done. Not by mortals, gods, or even angels. If anyone has reached it, it's a mystery lost to time. Gohan's expression shifted as a memory surfaced. But my father told me he reached Kaioken times 100. That's what drew my attention to this scroll in the first place. King Kai froze mid-thought, turning to Gohan with wide eyes. Goku reached... What? That's right, Gohan said, nodding. Father said the highest level of Kaioken he could achieve was times 100. But when I read this scroll, it didn't seem to match his training at all. The Kaioken described here is completely different. Father's version multiplies his power and physical abilities. But this, he tapped the scroll beside him. This is about more than just strength. It's about understanding ki itself, controlling it on a level I don't think even Father has attempted. King Kai's mouth fell open slightly, his shock evident. He reached for his drink, took a sip, and promptly spat it out. What did you just say? He exclaimed, nearly choking on his words. Goku increased the Kaioken from times 20 to 100. Gohan nodded, unfazed by King Kai's outburst. That's what he told me. But now I'm wondering, was that even the true Kaioken? Or just a variation of it? King Kai sat back, muttering to himself in disbelief. Goku, you're truly incredible. King Kai's words hung in the air like a solemn warning, but Gohan's determination only deepened. The thought of mastering the same knowledge used to train Zeno himself was a challenge he couldn't turn away from. The idea burned within him, a chance not just to grow stronger, but to truly understand the core of ki and push beyond the limits that even his father had reached. You're learning from a text meant for the king of everything, King Kai continued, pacing as he spoke. This isn't just some advanced training manual, it's the complete knowledge of Kaioken, something even I wasn't fully aware of when I taught your father. Zeno mastered every form of energy manipulation because, as the king of everything, he needed to know every fundamental element of existence, including Kaioken. King Kai paused, scratching his head. Honestly, I'm shocked the scroll still exists. It's ancient and should have been destroyed long ago. What's even stranger is that it ended up here, in a place like this. Gohan listened intently, absorbing every word. After a moment of silence, he spoke, his tone thoughtful. What if I tried removing all the ki from my body? The suggestion made King Kai freeze, his antennae twitching as his eyes went wide. What? That's insane! Without ki, your body would, well, it wouldn't survive. You'd collapse, or worse. But the scroll mentioned something about reaching a pure state, Gohan pressed. It said that true mastery of Kaioken involves understanding ki not as a tool, but as a natural force. To do that, I need to experience what it means to have no ki at all. If I succeed, I might finally understand how ki works on the most fundamental level. King Kai shook his head furiously. Absolutely not. That's a recipe for obliteration. I can't let you do something so reckless. There has to be another way. Gohan's expression remained calm, but his eyes gleamed with unshakable resolve. I understand your concern, King Kai, but this is something I have to try. If I want to push beyond my limits, I need to take risks. King Kai let out a long, weary sigh, rubbing his temples. "You're just like your father, stubborn as a mule." A small smile tugged at the corner of Gohan's lips. "I'll take that as a compliment." King Kai waved a hand dismissively, his voice exasperated. Yeah, whatever. All right, but we're doing this my way. No crazy experiments, at least not yet. We start with the basics and move carefully. Got it?" Gohan nodded, his smile widening. Agreed. The next morning, Gohan stood in an open field on King Kai's small, gravity-dense planet. The serene blue sky and soft clouds above belied the intense challenge that awaited him. The increased gravity pressed down on him, making even standing still feel like a workout. King Kai stood a few paces away, his arms crossed as he watched Gohan prepare. "All right, here's how we're starting. I want you to activate your Kaioken in base form and hold it for as long as you can. No transformations yet, just focus on control and endurance." Gohan took a deep breath, closing his eyes as he concentrated. He let his awareness sink inward, feeling the energy within him stir. Slowly, he began to channel it, the familiar warmth of ki spreading through his body. With a sharp exhale, he shouted, "Kaioken, times 10! A brilliant red aura burst around him, flickering like flames and casting long shadows across the field. The ground beneath Gohan's feet cracked and buckled under the pressure of his energy. The strain hit him immediately. His muscles tensed, and the weight of the Kaioken pressed down on him like a tidal wave. "Good, good," King Kai called out, his voice steady but encouraging. "Now hold it. Focus on your breathing. Let the ki flow naturally." Gohan gritted his teeth, his breaths coming in controlled bursts as he fought to maintain the technique. Every muscle in his body screamed in protest, but he kept his focus sharp, refusing to waver. Seconds stretched into what felt like eternity as Gohan pushed his limit. His red Kaioken aura flickered and surged, a testament to his sheer willpower. Sweat poured from his forehead, soaking the ground beneath him. His breaths came in short, labored gasps, each one harder than the last. "Just a little longer," he muttered, his voice strained yet determined. As the 5-minute mark approached, the crimson energy around him began to waver, the strain on his body becoming unbearable. His muscles burned like fire, and his vision blurred. I can't hold it anymore," he gasped, his knees beginning to buckle. "All right, release it," King Kai called out urgently. With a loud exhale, Gohan let the energy dissipate, collapsing onto one knee. His chest heaved as he struggled to catch his breath, his body trembling from the effort. "Not bad for your first day," King Kai said, handing Gohan a towel. His tone was encouraging but firm. "But don't get ahead of yourself. We've got a long road ahead." The following days were grueling. Gohan repeated the same exercise, gradually increasing the Kaioken multiplier. Each session pushed his body further than the last, testing the limits of his endurance. "Kaioken times 20! He yelled one morning, his aura roaring like a wildfire around him. "Kaioken times 30! He bellowed in another session, the strain threatening to tear him apart. Every increase brought new challenges. His muscles screamed in agony, and his bones felt as though they might shatter under the immense pressure. The high gravity of King Kai's planet only compounded the difficulty, each movement a Herculean task. One particularly brutal afternoon, Gohan collapsed onto the grass, his chest rising and falling as he stared up at the endless blue sky. "Is this really the right path?" he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. King Kai sat down beside him, his tone uncharacteristically soft. Having doubts, Gohan shook his head slightly, not taking his eyes off the sky. "No, not doubts, just reflecting. It's harder than I thought it would be." King Kai chuckled lightly. "Great power comes with great effort, Gohan. But even the greatest effort means nothing if you push too hard and end up breaking yourself. Listen to your body." "I know," Gohan replied, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "But I can't stop now." As months turned into a year, Gohan's training evolved. He began incorporating his various transformations into his exercises, merging their immense power with the Kaioken. In one intense session, he powered up to his ultimate form, his aura glowing with a radiant white light that seemed to illuminate the entire field. "Now, Kaioken, times 20, he shouted, his voice echoing across the planet. The familiar red aura of the Kaioken flared to life, overlaying his ultimate form. The two energies swirled violently around him, the sheer intensity of their collision shaking the ground beneath his feet. "Focus, Gohan!" King Kai yelled over the deafening roar of energy. "Don't let it overwhelm you. Keep it under control." I'm trying!" Gohan grunted, his entire body draining against the chaotic power. The ground quaked violently, and bolts of energy shot out in all directions, scorching the surrounding landscape. Suddenly, The two auras clashed too violently to contain. With a thunderous explosion, the energy burst outward, sending Gohan flying backward. He hit the ground hard, sliding several feet before coming to a stop. "Gohan!" King Kai shouted, rushing over to him. "Are you all right?" Gohan groaned as he sat up, rubbing the back of his head. "I'm okay," he muttered, though his voice was tinged with frustration. "Guess that didn't work." King Kai knelt beside him, his tone gentle but firm. "You're trying to merge two immense powers. It's not going to happen overnight. Setbacks like this are natural." Gohan clenched his fist, his resolve unwavering despite the setback. "I won't give up." The training continued relentlessly. Every session left Gohan battered and bruised, but his determination never wavered. Bruises and scratches became a familiar part of his daily life, yet he pushed through each challenge with unshakable focus. During one meditation session, Gohan tried something new. Sitting cross-legged on the grass, he focused his ki inward, directing it toward his injuries. He visualized the energy flowing to his damaged cells, knitting them back together. King Kai watched from a distance, his expression one of awe. "Remarkable," he said softly. "Your control over ki is improving faster than I expected." Gohan opened his eyes, offering a small, tired smile. "It's thanks to your guidance, King Kai." The older deity chuckled. "Don't give me too much credit. That determination of yours is doing most of the work." One starry evening, Gohan sat cross-legged under the vast night sky. The ancient Kaioken scroll spread out before him. He traced the faded text with his fingers, his mind racing with possibilities. "According to this," he murmured to himself, "I need to maintain the power of my transformations without actually transforming. That's the key." Closing his eyes, he delved deep into his consciousness. He visualized the raw power of his beast form, the primal, untamed energy that surged through him. He recalled the divine strength of Super Saiyan God and the refined precision of Super Saiyan Blue. "Become the power," he whispered, his voice calm but firm. "Don't just wield it, be it." Gohan stood slowly, his breathing steady, but his mind racing with determination. His eyes remained closed, shutting out all distractions as he focused on drawing the power of his transformations into his base state. A faint glow began to envelop his body, shifting subtly between colors, gold, red, and a glimmering white, as different energies surfaced and interwove. "That's it," he whispered to himself. "Hold on to it, feel it flow." The air around him thickened as his energy spiked dramatically. The ground beneath his feet cracked and splintered, sending shockwaves across King Kai's small planet. A whirlwind of energy spiraled around Gohan, lifting loose rocks and debris into the air as if caught in a storm. Inside, King Kai nearly dropped his lunch plate as he felt the sudden surge of power. His antennae twitched furiously. "What in the world?" he muttered before rushing outside, his stubby legs moving as fast as they could carry him. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. Gohan stood at the center of the chaos, his energy pulsating wildly. The faint glow around him had become a blazing storm of light, a cacophony of power, almost too intense to look at. "Gohan!" King Kai shouted over the roar of energy. "What's happening?" Gohan's eyes snapped open, glowing with a fierce, otherworldly intensity. He clenched his fists as he struggled to stay grounded amidst the surging power. "I can feel it, King Kai. All the power, without the transformations. I've almost got it." But the energy around him grew unstable, flickering erratically, like a raging fire about to explode. Suddenly, pain ripped through Gohan's body, sharp and unrelenting, like lightning coursing through his veins. "Ah!" Gohan screamed, clutching his chest as his muscles spasmed uncontrollably. King Kai's expression turned to panic. "Release it!" he yelled desperately. "Let go before it tears you apart." I can't," Gohan gasped, his voice trembling under the strain. His entire body felt like it was on the verge of collapse. Thinking fast, King Kai dashed forward, and placed a hand firmly on Gohan's back. He closed his eyes, channeling a steady stream of calming ki into the young Saiyan's turbulent energy. "Focus on my energy, Gohan. Match its rhythm. Breathe." Gohan winced, but followed the guidance. His breaths grew steadier, and the chaotic energy began to subside, dissipating like a receding tide. Finally, the light faded, and Gohan collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. "That was too close," King Kai muttered, wiping the sweat from his brow. Gohan looked up weakly, his face pale but resolute. I almost had it." King Kai frowned and crossed his arms. "You almost obliterated yourself. That's what you almost did. Your mortal body isn't meant to contain that much power all at once." Sitting up slowly, Gohan brushed some dirt off his knee. "But if I can master this, I won't need to rely on transformations. I could be stronger, faster, get better. At what cost? King Kai asked pointedly. You nearly tore yourself apart just now. Power isn't worth much if it leaves you in pieces. Gohan glanced down, his face conflicted. I want to make a difference. I don't want to be a bystander when it matters most. King Kai's expression softened. I know, Gohan. I know. But even the greatest fighters have limits. Even your father understood that. Gohan took a deep breath, considering King Kai's words. Maybe you're right, he said finally. Maybe I need to take a different approach. The next day, King Kai presented a new training plan. Instead of trying to hold all the energy at once, Gohan would focus on integrating one transformation at a time into his base form. By layering the process gradually, they hoped to build a stronger foundation. All right, King Kai began, gesturing to the open field. Start with something simple. Power up to Super Saiyan. Then, revert to base while keeping the power level steady. No sudden spikes. Gohan nodded, his expression calm and focused. With a sharp inhale, he summoned the golden energy of a Super Saiyan. His hair turned bright blonde as his aura flared to life, shining like sunlight. Good, King Kai said. Now, slowly return to base form, but keep the energy level constant. Let the power linger, even after the transformation fades. Gohan furrowed his brow in concentration. Gradually, his hair darkened back to black, but the golden aura remained, pulsing faintly around him. That's it! King Kai cheered, his voice filled with excitement. Sweat began to bead on Gohan's brow as he struggled to maintain the delicate balance. The effort was immense, like holding a glass of water perfectly still while standing on a moving platform. Hold it for 10 more seconds, King Kai encouraged, his eyes fixed on Gohan. At the 9th second, the golden aura flickered and faded completely. Gohan exhaled sharply, his body slumping slightly from the strain. Not bad for a first attempt, King Kai said with a proud smile. Over the next several days, Gohan repeated the process, each session lasting longer than the last. He pushed himself to maintain the energy longer, learning to control its flow without relying on the transformation itself. His endurance and precision grew stronger with every attempt. Once he felt confident with Super Saiyan, they moved on to more advanced forms. All right, King Kai instructed. Let's try Super Saiyan God next. You've got a handle on the basics. This will be a real test of your focus. Gohan nodded, closing his eyes. He tapped into the divine energy of Super Saiyan God, and a crimson aura enveloped him, swirling gracefully around his body. His eyes glowed with a fiery intensity. Now, King Kai said carefully, revert to base, but don't let the energy vanish. Gohan took a deep breath and focused intently. Slowly, his appearance shifted back to normal, but the crimson energy remained, crackling faintly around him like embers. Excellent work, King Kai exclaimed, clapping his hands. As before, the energy began to destabilize after a short time. Gohan's aura wavered, threatening to spiral out of control. Maintain your focus, King Kai called out. Steady breaths, Gohan. Steady. Taking his mentor's advice, Gohan steadied his breathing. Gradually, the energy stabilized, returning to a calm, controlled state. Gohan's face lit up with a triumphant grin. Yes! He exclaimed, his voice filled with pride. They pressed forward, moving to tackle Super Saiyan Blue next. The transformation's tranquil, divine energy was deceptively volatile, and containing its immense power within his base form proved to be Gohan's greatest challenge yet. The first attempts were grueling. Gohan's aura would flicker, the radiant blue energy swirling unevenly around him. Each time, he strained to stabilize it, sweat pouring down his face as he fought to hold the form. During one attempt, a sharp pain suddenly shot through his chest, causing his concentration to falter. His energy spiked uncontrollably, lightning crackling violently around him. Not again, he muttered, his voice tight with frustration. His hands trembled as he struggled to regain control, but the power surged wildly. King Kai! Gohan shouted, panic creeping into his voice. It's happening! King Kai, sensing the danger, rushed toward him. Gohan, release it now before King Kai could finish. The unstable energy erupted in a blinding explosion. The shockwave tore through the field, sending both Gohan and King Kai flying through the air. The ground quaked from the impact, and a thick cloud of dust rose into the air. When the dust settled, Gohan lay sprawled on the ground, his body battered and barely conscious. King Kai crawled toward him, coughing and waving away the lingering debris. Gohan! King Kai shouted, his voice laced with worry. He reached Gohan's side and shook him gently. Speak to me, Gohan. Are you okay? Gohan's eyes fluttered open, his vision hazy. Did I do it? He asked weakly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. King Kai let out a breathless laugh, half in relief. Well, you survived, if that's what you mean. Gohan chuckled softly, though it quickly turned into a wince. I guess that's progress, he said, his tone light despite his exhaustion. King Kai helped him sit up, his expression turning serious. You're pushing the boundaries of what's possible, Gohan. But if you're not careful, you'll tear yourself apart before you reach your goal. Gohan nodded, brushing dirt off his face. I know, I'll be more careful, I promise. But I can't stop now. Over the next few weeks, Gohan's progress was remarkable. Each session brought him closer to mastery. He worked tirelessly to refine his control, holding the power of Super Saiyan Blue in his base form for longer periods. What once overwhelmed him now felt manageable, even natural. During one particularly intense session, Gohan maintained the energy for several minutes without any adverse effect. The serene blue aura danced around him, steady and calm, a reflection of his growing mastery. Your control is improving, King Kai remarked, a note of pride in his voice. Gohan nodded, though his expression remained thoughtful. Thanks, but I still feel like something's missing. King Kai tilted his head, curious. What do you mean? It's hard to explain, Gohan admitted. I can feel the power, and I can hold it now, but it doesn't feel complete, like I'm only scratching the surface of what it could be. King Kai stroked his chin thoughtfully. Perhaps it's not just about power, Gohan. Maybe you need to understand the essence of your transformations. Gohan furrowed his brow. The essence? King Kai smiled faintly. Each of your forms represents a different aspect of who you are. Your Super Saiyan forms tap into your Saiyan heritage, the warrior instinct. The God forms connect you to divine energy, a power that transcends mortal limits. Maybe integrating them isn't just about strength, it's about embracing every part of yourself. Gohan considered his mentor's words carefully. So what you're saying is I need to find balance, not just in my energy, but in who I am. Exactly, King Kai said with a nod. Harmony within yourself will lead to harmony in your energy. That evening, Gohan sat cross-legged under the vast starlit sky. The world around him was silent, save for the faint rustling of the wind. He closed his eyes and delved deep into his thoughts, reflecting on his journey. Memories flooded his mind, his greatest battles, his moments of triumph and failure, the people he loved and the sacrifices he'd made. I am a Saiyan, he thought, his inner voice steady and resolute. But I'm also human, a warrior and a scholar, strength and wisdom, two sides of the same coin. As he meditated, a warmth spread through his body. It wasn't the fiery surge of power he was used to. It was calm, steady, an almost comforting sensation. He felt his energies blending together, no longer clashing, but moving in harmony. When he opened his eyes, he found himself surrounded by a gentle aura. It wasn't wild or overwhelming like before. Instead, it radiated a quiet strength, a reflection of the balance he'd achieved. King Kai, Gohan called softly, his voice calm yet firm. King Kai approached, his antennae twitching as he sensed the shift in Gohan's energy. His eyes widened, and a proud smile spread across his face. Gohan, you've done it. I think I've found the balance, Gohan said, standing slowly. There was a new confidence in his voice, one that didn't come from power alone. King Kai nodded, his pride evident. This is a significant step forward, Gohan. You're beginning to understand what it means to truly master your energy. Gohan stretched his arms, feeling lighter, yet more powerful than ever before. I get it now. It's not just about containing the power. It's about uniting it, embracing every part of who I am. Well said, King Kai agreed with a grin. Gohan turned to his mentor, a smile of gratitude on his face. Thank you, King Kai. I couldn't have done this without your guidance. King Kai chuckled, waving a hand dismissively. Don't thank me yet. Remember, Gohan, you're just at the basic level. There's still a long way to go. The next day, Gohan stood silently at the edge of a serene lake within King Kai's retreat. The water stretched before him like a sheet of glass, perfectly still and mirroring the brilliant blue sky above. The reflection created an illusion of infinite space, a tranquil stage for his meditation. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply as the crisp, cool air filled his lungs and calmed his mind. To understand Ki at its core, he thought, letting the serenity of the moment wash over him. I must become one with everything around me. Lowering himself to the ground, Gohan crossed his legs and rested his hands on his knees. He let go of the physical world, his senses dulling as he dove deeper into his consciousness. The sounds of the wind and water faded until there was only silence. In his mind's eye, He visualized himself suspended in an endless void, surrounded by countless shimmering particles of energy. Each tiny speck seemed alive, pulsating with its own rhythm. These are fragments of ki, Gohan realized, awe filling his thoughts. Pure elemental energy, the building blocks of everything. The sensation was unlike anything he had experienced before. He could feel the ki flowing not just within himself, but all around him. The trees, the water, even the still air carried this energy. It wasn't chaotic or forceful. It was gentle, interconnected, and in perfect balance. So this is ki on its most basic level, he murmured within his mind. It's not just power, it's harmony. Rather than trying to absorb the energy, Gohan focused on understanding its movement, its natural rhythm. He aligned his own ki with this flow, allowing his energy to move as one with the world around him. Slowly, he felt his power becoming more refined, each particle of energy fitting together like pieces of a puzzle. Hours passed, then days, as Gohan practiced this new form of meditation. Each session brought him closer to mastering the intricacies of ki. The more he understood, the more efficient his energy became. His aura began to change. It was no longer the fierce, blazing energy of his transformations. Instead, it was soft and radiant, pulsing gently with his heartbeat. It was calm yet powerful, a clear reflection of his growing balance. During one session, Gohan stood by the lake, his body enveloped in a faint red glow. He muttered, "Kaioken times 30. The aura flickered, steady and controlled. There was no tension in his muscles, no strain on his body. It felt natural, remarkable, he said quietly. The strain is almost non-existent. He pushed further, testing the limits of his control. Kaioken times 40, times 50. Each level felt as stable as the last. His body remained calm, his energy flowing smoothly, without the usual resistance. Gohan maintained the Kaioken at times 50 for 30 minutes, then an hour. By the time he reached 2 hours, his breathing was steady, and his muscles were relaxed. At this rate, he noted, his voice steady, I can sustain the Kaioken far longer than I ever thought possible. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with hues of orange and purple, King Kai approached Gohan by the lake. The tiny deity stood with his hands behind his back, his antennae twitching thoughtfully as he observed his pupil. You've been spending a lot of time meditating lately, King Kai remarked, his voice calm but curious. How are you feeling? Gohan opened his eyes slowly and turned to face King Kai. His expression was serene, his eyes filled with quiet confidence. Better than ever, he said with a gentle smile. I've learned so much about Kit. It feels like I've unlocked a completely new understanding. King Kai nodded, sensing the change in Gohan's energy. I can tell. Your energy feels different, more harmonious, like it's flowing in perfect sync. Gohan stretched his arms and took a deep breath. I've managed to extend my Kaioken endurance, he explained. I can sustain higher multipliers for hours now, and the strain is barely noticeable. King Kai's eyes widened in surprise. Hours? He repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. That's incredible, Gohan. Even your father struggled to hold high levels of Kaioken for extended periods. Gohan stood tall, his posture relaxed, but exuding strength. It feels like I'm just getting started. There's so much more to explore, so much potential still untapped. King Kai crossed his arms, his expression a mix of pride and concern. Just be careful, Gohan. Pushing your limits is good, but don't forget that even you have boundaries. Overdoing it could set you back. Gohan nodded, his tone reassuring. I'll be careful, King Kai. Thank you for your guidance and your concern. The two stood in silence for a moment, the calm waters of the lake reflecting the last rays of sunlight. Gohan clenched his fists lightly, feeling the controlled energy within him. He had come so far, yet he knew this was only the beginning of his journey. The next day, Gohan stood in the heart of King Kai's retreat, the calm serenity of the landscape, starkly contrasted by the raw, untamed energy radiating from his body. His training had reached an advanced stage, and he was ready to push further than ever before. Combining the Kaioken with his beast form was no small feat, but Gohan felt ready to face the challenge head-on. Taking a deep breath, he allowed the familiar crimson aura of the Kaioken to ignite around him. Its fiery energy clashed with the primal electric force of his beast form, creating a mesmerizing vortex of power. The ground trembled beneath him, cracks spidering outward, as if the very planet were struggling to bear his might. Kaioken times 50! Gohan roared, his voice booming like thunder and echoing across the serene otherworld landscape. From a safe distance, King Kai observed the display with a mixture of awe and growing concern. Gohan's progress was undeniable, beyond anything King Kai could have imagined, but the sheer intensity of his power left the deity uneasy. "This is getting out of hand," King Kai muttered to himself, his antennae twitching nervously. He doesn't realize the danger he's putting himself in. Gohan's energy continued to surge, shaking the ground and causing nearby trees to sway violently. King Kai finally decided he couldn't stay silent any longer. As Gohan powered down, the red and blue energy dissipating into the air, King Kai approached him with a serious expression. "Gohan, we need to talk," King Kai said, his voice firm. Gohan turned to him, wiping sweat from his brow but wearing a calm, determined look. "What's wrong, King Kai?" King Kai took a deep breath, his tone heavy with gravity. "Your progress is astonishing, Gohan. Truly, it is. But I'm concerned about what you're doing. The knowledge you're using, the techniques you're pursuing, predates even the gods of destruction. This is ancient and forbidden for a reason." Gohan frowned, his curiosity piqued. "What do you mean? Why is it forbidden?" King Kai adjusted his glasses, his expression troubled. "The scrolls you've been studying contain secrets that were never meant for mortals. The 101st level of Kaioken isn't just a technique, it's a force that even the deities feared to explore. Attempting it is tantamount to courting self-destruction." For a moment, Gohan was silent, absorbing King Kai's words. Then he spoke, his voice steady. "I understand the risks, but I've come too far to turn back now. I believe I can handle it." King Kai's face hardened. "Gohan, you're playing with forces beyond comprehension. If you lose control for even a moment, the backlash could obliterate your very existence. Not even the other world could protect you from that." Gohan's gaze didn't waver. "I appreciate your concern, King Kai, but I have to see this through. I can't give up." King Kai crossed his arms, his voice rising slightly. "As your mentor, I can't allow you to continue down this path. It's too dangerous, and I won't stand by and watch you destroy yourself." Gohan met his gaze with quiet resolve. "Then I'll prove to you that I can control it." Without waiting for King Kai's response, Gohan stepped back and began to power up once more. His aura erupted into life, the red of the Kaioken weaving seamlessly with the wild electric energy of his beast form. The ground trembled beneath him, the shockwaves rippling outward in waves. "Kaioken times 50, he declared, his voice carrying an unshakable confidence. The sheer force of his power sent a gust of wind rushing through the area, rustling the leaves of distant trees and sending ripples across the lake's surface. The ground cracked further, but Gohan's stance was steady, his control unflinching. "Gohan, stop this!" King Kai shouted, shielding his eyes from the blinding light of Gohan's combined aura. "You don't have to prove anything to me." But Gohan didn't stop. "I need you to see that I can handle this," he said, his voice calm despite the immense power radiating from him. He moved into a series of combat forms, his body flowing effortlessly through each motion. Every punch, every kick, and every stance was precise and deliberate. His control over the overwhelming energy, absolute. King Kai watched, his mouth slightly agape. "He's maintaining perfect control," he muttered in astonishment. After several minutes, Gohan powered down. The fiery red and wild blue auras around him faded into nothingness, leaving him standing tall and steady. His breathing was even, and there was no sign of the instability that had plagued his earlier attempts. "See?" Gohan said, a small smile playing on his lips. He was slightly out of breath, but his voice was steady. "I can control it." King Kai stared at him for a moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft. I underestimated you, Gohan." Gohan's smile widened, though it remained humble. "I know you worry about me, King Kai, and I'm grateful for that, but I believe this is my path." King Kai sighed deeply, his shoulders relaxing as he let go of his earlier resistance. "Perhaps I've been too cautious. Your mastery over Ki is beyond anything I've ever seen, even among the greatest fighters. I couldn't have done it without your guidance," Gohan said, his tone sincere. King Kai allowed himself a small grin. "Well, I suppose I can't stop you, can I? Just promise me one thing, Gohan." "What's that?" Gohan asked. King Kai's grin faded slightly, replaced by a look of genuine concern. "Promise me you'll continue to be careful." "I promise," Gohan replied firmly. That night, Gohan sat cross-legged beneath the vast canopy of stars, the soft hum of the universe resonating around him. The day's intense training lingered in his muscles, but his mind was restless, turning over King Kai's warnings and his own unwavering resolve. I hope King Kai understands, Gohan thought, gazing up at the endless expanse above. I'm not doing this just for myself. I have to push beyond my limits for everyone I care about. A gentle breeze brushed against his skin, carrying with it the faint whispers of the otherworld's serene energy. The stars shimmered like distant, silent watchers, each one a testament to the enormity of existence. He closed his eyes, letting the night's calm seep into his thoughts. What lies beyond the 101st level? He wondered, his mind drifting. Is there a point where power and understanding become one? As he slipped deeper into meditation, a strange yet soothing sensation took hold of him. It was subtle, like a thread connecting him to something vast and unknowable. The air seemed lighter, the energy around him more palpable, as though the universe itself was reaching out. Could this be the next step? He mused, focusing intently on the feeling. He allowed it to guide him, surrendering his consciousness to the flow. The world around him dissolved, replaced by an endless expanse of radiant light. It was neither harsh nor blinding, but warm and infinite, stretching in every direction like a sea of serenity. Welcome, Gohan. A voice echoed softly, serene and without origin. Gohan's eyes snapped open in the void. Who's there? He called out, his voice steady despite the strange surrounding. From the light, a figure began to emerge. It was neither fully formed nor undefined, its shape shifting like a reflection on rippling water. It felt familiar, yet alien, as though it were a part of him he'd long forgotten. I am a manifestation of your inner self, the figure said, its tone calm and unwavering, a reflection of your true potential. Gohan furrowed his brow, studying the figure. My inner self? What does that mean? The figure stepped closer, radiating a sense of profound wisdom. You stand on the brink of a great breakthrough, it explained. But to proceed, you must embrace a fundamental truth. True power comes from unity, not just within yourself, but with the universe. Unity with the universe? Gohan repeated, the words stirring something deep within him. Yes, the figure continued with a faint nod. You've been striving to harness power, to command it. But power isn't something to be owned or controlled. It is something to be shared, a flow that connects all things. Gohan's gaze softened as he considered the figure's words. So, I need to become one with the energy around me, to move with it instead of against it. Exactly, the figure said, a small, knowing smile gracing its ever-shifting features. Embrace the flow of ki that binds all things, and you will find that the boundaries you perceive are merely illusions. As the figure's words settled into his heart, the vision began to dissolve, the endless expanse of light fading. Gohan felt himself returning to the physical world, but the clarity the figure imparted remained, etched into his very being. Opening his eyes, he looked at the stars with a renewed sense of purpose. I think I understand now, he whispered. The next morning, Gohan sought out King Kai, finding the deity sipping tea on a small rock near his home. King Kai, I had a revelation last night, Gohan began, his tone serious yet filled with excitement. King Kai looked up, his antennae twitching with interest. Oh, this should be good. Let's hear it. Gohan sat down across from him, his voice steady. I've realized that I've been going about this the wrong way. I've been trying to control and contain power as if it were something separate from me. But maybe I need to let it flow through me instead. King Kai set down his teacup, his eyebrows raising in intrigue. Go on? If I can align myself with the key of the universe, Gohan explained, I won't be fighting against the energy. Instead, I'll be moving with it. That could allow me to reach new heights without the same risks of instability. King Kai stroked his chin, his expression thoughtful. That's a profound insight, Gohan. It aligns with the oldest teachings of Ki, the ones even I rarely speak of. Power isn't just about dominance, it's about harmony. Will you help me explore this? Gohan asked, his earnestness shining through. King Kai smiled, nodding. Of course, Gohan. Let's see where this path leads. Their new training regimen began immediately, shifting away from raw power and toward fluidity and connection. King Kai guided Gohan through movements inspired by the natural elements, each one emphasizing balance and flow. Gohan moved like water, adapting and bending. He steadied himself like the unyielding earth. His strikes became swift like the wind, and his presence burned fierce like fire. As he practiced, Gohan began to sense the subtle threads of energy that connected him to everything around him. He could feel the ki of the planet beneath his feet, the gentle hum of life in the plants, and even the unique energy radiating from King Kai himself. Excellent, Gohan, King Kai encouraged, watching his pupils progress with pride. You're becoming more attuned every day. Gohan's movements grew smoother, his energy more stable than ever before. With each session, he felt a newfound sense of lightness and purpose, as though he were no longer shouldering the weight of his power, but moving in harmony with it. For the first time, Gohan felt like he wasn't chasing his limits, he was becoming one with them. One quiet afternoon, while immersed in his training, Gohan felt a spark of inspiration ripple through him. His newfound connection with Ki was profound, but he sensed there was still more to explore, more to unify. Maybe I can combine this harmony with the Kaioken, he mused, his voice thoughtful yet resolute. Standing tall, he took a deep, steadying breath, letting the calm energy of the universe flow through him. Slowly, he activated the Kaioken, allowing the familiar red aura to shimmer softly around his body. Unlike before, there was no force, no struggle, only ease. "Kaioken times 50, he whispered. The energy rose smoothly, filling him with immense power, yet without the usual strain. His aura no longer felt separate from the world around him, but moved as part of it, blending seamlessly with the natural energies of King Kai's planet. This feels different, Gohan noted, his voice tinged with awe. He began moving through his combat forms, his motions fluid and precise, each strike and dodge executed with flawless grace. There was no hesitation, no imbalance, only pure synchronization between his body and the ki flowing through him. From a distance, King Kai watched, his jaw slightly agape. "He's done it," he murmured. "He's found the balance." Gohan continued for hours, his movements tireless, his energy unwavering. When he finally powered down, the red glow of the Kaioken faded gently, leaving him standing tall and refreshed, rather than drained. "How do you feel?" King Kai asked, rushing toward him eagerly. "Incredible," Gohan replied, a wide, genuine smile spreading across his face. "I think I've truly connected with the key of the universe." King Kai clapped his hands together, his excitement barely contained. "This is a monumental achievement, Gohan. Few beings have ever reached such a state." Gohan turned his gaze toward the horizon, his expression contemplative. "I wonder how far I can take this." King Kai placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "With this level of understanding, perhaps even the 101st level of Kaioken is within reach." Gohan nodded slowly, his resolve hardening. "One step at a time, but I believe it's possible now." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in vibrant shades of orange and purple, Gohan felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. For the first time in a long while, his path felt clear. "I finally found my way," he thought, his heart calm. Not through sheer force, but through unity and understanding. The next morning, the golden light of the sun bathed King Kai's planet, casting long shadows across the tranquil landscape. The chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves provided a soothing backdrop. Yet within Gohan, a storm brewed, a storm of purpose. "I've pushed my physical limits," Gohan thought, as he stood amidst the serenity. "But to reach the next level, I need to challenge myself in ways I've never considered." He recalled a lesson King Kai had once shared, one inspired by Earth's martial art. King Kai had explained that the greatest opponent one could face was oneself. How do you counter someone who's as strong as you, who knows your every move and how to counter it? King Kai had said. Humans call it shadowboxing, a way to battle your own boundaries. The idea resonated deeply with Gohan. If I can face a true reflection of my potential, I might finally surpass it. Closing his eyes, he focused intently, channeling his ki in a way he never had before. The air around him shimmered, pulsating with energy as he visualized his intent. Slowly, a figure began to materialize before him, taking shape with startling clarity. It was him, a perfect replica, yet its aura burned even brighter, fiercer. "Hello, Gohan," the shadow said with a smirk, its voice a mirror of his own, but layered with challenge. Gohan opened his eyes, facing the manifestation with calm determination. "So, this is what my power looks like, beyond my current limit." The shadow gave a small nod. "I'm everything you're striving to become. Ready to see if you can keep up?" Without hesitation, both assumed fighting stances, their energies crackling in the air. The atmosphere grew tense, charged with anticipation as their auras flared in unison. "Let's begin," Gohan declared, his voice firm. They launched at each other simultaneously, their fists colliding with such force that shockwaves rippled across the planet. The ground trembled beneath their feet, the sheer energy of their movements causing the air itself to hum. The shadow moved with incredible speed, its attacks precise and relentless. Gohan barely dodged a flurry of kicks, his mind racing to keep up. "He's using Kaioken times 70, Gohan realized, blocking a powerful punch that sent him skidding back. I have to match him. The shadow grinned, its eyes gleaming. Come on, you can do better than that, it taunted, its voice dripping with challenge. Gritting his teeth, Gohan shouted, Kaioken, times 70. His body erupted with energy, the red aura around him intensifying as his powers surged. The battle escalated, their movements blurring as they exchanged blow after blow. Neither gained the upper hand, each perfectly countering the other's attacks. The sheer intensity of the fight sent ripples through the landscape, the ground cracking under their feet with every impact. From a distance, King Kai watched, his expression a mix of awe and disbelief. He's fighting himself? He muttered. Incredible. The battle continued, each strike pushing Gohan to new heights as he fought to keep up with his shadow. The realization dawned on him. This wasn't just a battle of strength. It was a test of his resolve, his understanding, and his ability to unify his power with the world around him. The hours passed like a blur of fists, energy, and unrelenting willpower. Gohan's body screamed for rest, his muscles heavy and his breath ragged, but he refused to back down, his resolve burning brighter with every clash. I won't back down, he vowed through gritted teeth. The fiery determination in his voice seemed to echo across King Kai's small planet. Summoning what strength remained, Gohan pushed his power even further. His aura flared, blazing brighter and hotter, bathing the battlefield in a radiant glow. The Crimson Kaioken intertwined with the electric energy of his beast form, creating an intense fusion of raw strength and refined control. The shadow smirked, its expression gleaming with both pride and challenge. That's more like it, it shouted before lunging forward. Their next collision was cataclysmic. The force of their fists meeting sent shockwaves tearing through the ground, creating deep fissures beneath them. The air trembled as they exchanged blows at blinding speeds, their movements a blur of red and gold light. Then, with a decisive surge of energy, Gohan landed a powerful punch squarely on the shadow's chest. The impact sent the doppelganger skidding backward, carving a trail in the fractured earth. Panting heavily, Gohan stood firm, his chest heaving. A faint smile crept onto his face. I can feel it. I'm breaking through. The shadow straightened, brushing the dust from its form. Its playful demeanor faded into something more serious. You've grown, it admitted, but we're not done yet. The next morning, Gohan returned to the same field, his steps steady and his expression unyielding. The tranquil morning light cast long shadows across the ground, but he paid them no mind. He was ready. The shadow appeared as if from thin air, its aura still potent, but its presence now felt sharper. Ready for round 2? It asked, tilting its head with a smirk. More than ever, Gohan replied, his voice calm yet resolute. This time, however, the shadow's strategy shifted. Instead of rushing into battle, it stood still, its expression darkening as it began to speak. Do you really think you can surpass your father? It sneered, its tone laced with venom. You've always been in his shadow. The words struck like a sudden blow, catching Gohan off guard. He faltered, his fists lowering slightly as doubt crept into his mind. I know I can, he said, though his voice wavered. The shadow chuckled, pressing its advantage. Your doubts are holding you back. You're afraid of failure, afraid that no matter how far you push yourself, you'll never be enough. The words dug deep. For a moment, Gohan stood still, his aura flickering uncertainly. But as the silence stretched, something within him shifted. He thought about his struggles, his triumphs, and the moments where doubt had nearly consumed him. He realized that this was the final barrier, the fear he had to overcome. Maybe I have been doubting myself, Gohan admitted, his voice steadying, but not anymore. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his insecurities lift as he embraced both his strengths and weaknesses. I am who I am, and that's enough. The shadow watched as Gohan's aura steadied and grew brighter. Its smirk widened. Then let's push it further. Show me what you've got. Kaioken times 80, Gohan roared, his energy erupting like a volcano. His aura exploded outward in a brilliant fusion of red and gold, the ground trembling beneath his feet as his power surged to unimaginable heights. The energy coursing through him felt different this time. Stronger, yet calmer, complete. He felt no resistance, no instability, only harmony. The shadow grinned. Now that's impressive. Without hesitation, they clashed again. This time, Gohan moved with unparalleled confidence. His strikes were precise, his movements fluid, and his energy perfectly balanced. Blow after blow, He matched the Shadow's every move, their battle a dazzling storm of power and light. "You're no longer hindered," the Shadow noted mid-combat, its voice tinged with approval. Gohan's expression was calm but resolute. "I've accepted who I am," he replied firmly. "All of me, my doubts, my strengths, my weaknesses, they're all part of what makes me strong." The Shadow's smile softened as if satisfied. "Then prove it." With a final earth-shaking attack, the two collided in a brilliant flash of energy. The shockwave rippled outward, shaking the entire planet. When the light faded, the Shadow stood still for a moment before beginning to dissolve, its form turning into particles of light. "Well done," it said softly, its voice filled with pride. "You've mastered not just your power, but yourself." The last remnants of the Shadow faded into the air, leaving Gohan standing alone in the aftermath. But this time, he didn't feel alone. He felt whole. A sense of unity and purpose filled him, stronger than any power he had ever known. King Kai approached cautiously, his eyes wide with awe. "That was extraordinary, Gohan. You reached Kaioken times 80? Gohan turned to him, his serene smile carrying a quiet confidence. "Yes, and I understand now that true strength comes from more than just power. It comes from accepting every part of myself." King Kai nodded, placing a hand on Gohan's shoulder. "You've grown, Gohan. Not just in strength, but in spirit. That's the mark of a true warrior." "Thank you," Gohan said earnestly, "for everything." The two stood in silence for a moment, the soft breeze carrying away the last traces of the battle. Gohan turned his gaze toward the horizon, a renewed determination in his heart. "I'm getting closer to my goal," he thought, his mind already set on the challenges ahead. A few days had passed since Gohan's monumental battle with his shadow self. Now, his training continued relentlessly, each step taking him closer to the ultimate goal. The golden hues of the other world's eternal twilight bathed the tranquil landscape as Gohan sat atop a solitary cliff, the vast expanse of this mystical realm stretching endlessly before him. The echoes of his shadow battles still lingered in his mind. Those clashes had not only pushed his physical limits, but had also forced him to confront the deepest recesses of his soul and hidden truths that had shaped him. Sitting cross-legged, Gohan closed his eyes and let the stillness of the other world embrace him. The gentle wind carried faint melodic whispers, blending harmoniously with the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. His breathing slowed, his consciousness drifting inward as he reflected on the arduous journey that had brought him here and the cryptic teachings of the ancient scroll. To reach the pinnacle, the 101st level, I must relinquish everything, Gohan thought, his mind replaying the words from the scroll. Not just my power, but the very essence of my being. The scroll had revealed a terrifying truth. Achieving the 101st level required the complete release of all ki and life energy. It wasn't simply a transformation, it was a total dissolution of the self, a feat deemed impossible for mortals and feared even by the gods. Gohan now understood why this path had remained untouched by even the most powerful beings. But he was different, being already dead, he thought, his brow furrowing in contemplation. What do I have to lose? Maybe death isn't on a barrier, but a gateway. The idea sparked something within him, a newfound clarity and resolve. Slowly, he opened his eyes, the soft golden light of the other world reflecting in their determined glow. He stood, the air around him beginning to hum faintly as his ki stirred. At the base of the cliff, King Kai suddenly appeared, his antennae twitching as he sensed a dramatic shift in the atmosphere. He looked up to see Gohan standing on the precipice, the faint glow of his energy flickering in an unusual rhythm. "Gohan!" King Kai called out, his voice carrying an edge of alarm. "What are you doing up there?" Gohan turned, his face calm but resolute. "It's time, King Kai. I've reached the threshold. To move forward, I have to let go of everything." King Kai's eyes widened in horror. "What?" Gohan, no, that's far too dangerous. If you release all of your ki, you could, erase yourself from existence. Gohan's lips curved into a gentle smile, his expression unwavering. "Trust me, King Kai. This is something I must do. I can feel it. This is the only way." Before King Kai could protest further, the glow around Gohan intensified. A brilliant light erupted from his body, illuminating the entire cliffside. The ground trembled violently beneath him, and the sky above swirled with cosmic energies, vibrant streaks of light tearing through the clouds. "Gohan, stop!" King Kai shouted, shielding his eyes from the overwhelming brilliance, but it was too late. Gohan's body began to dissolve into shimmering particles of light, his form ascending upward, into the vastness of the other world. Suspended in an endless void, Gohan's consciousness floated freely, untethered to the constraints of life or death. He no longer felt the weight of his body, his senses, or even time itself. Around him swirled the raw elements of existence: fire, water, earth, air, and the intangible threads of space and time. Each element pulsed with its own rhythm, yet they all moved as one, a cosmic symphony that resonated deep within him. This is the essence of everything, Gohan realized, his voice echoing in the stillness. The elemental key, the source of all creation. The enormity of what lay before him was staggering. He felt both infinitesimal and boundless, a single speck within the vastness of the universe, yet intimately connected to it all. Galaxies seemed to spin around him, their light casting intricate patterns across the void. Instead of fear, Gohan felt a profound sense of peace. He understood now. He wasn't meant to wield the energy of the universe as a separate force. He was a part of it, and it was a part of him. To rebuild myself, he thought, I must understand that I am a part of all things, and all things are a part of me. Closing his metaphorical eyes, Gohan drew upon everything he had learned, every moment of training and reflection. He extended his awareness, weaving the elemental energies around him with delicate precision. Threads of light and shadow intertwined, creating the framework for something new. Stars flared and dimmed in the distance as he molded his essence, crafting a form that could harmonize with the limitless energy surrounding him. The process was grueling. Waves of searing heat surged through him, followed by the chilling embrace of absolute void. The energies twisted and resisted, each thread requiring careful alignment to maintain balance. Time became meaningless. What felt like seconds stretched into eons, and eons passed in the blink of an eye. Yet, Gohan persisted, his resolve unshaken. Almost there, he told himself, his voice a steady beacon amidst the chaos. Just a little more. Each movement, each decision, brought him closer to completion. Piece by piece, he reconstructed himself, not as a warrior bound by limitations, but as something greater, a being in perfect unity with the universe. As Gohan continued his transformation, echoes of voices from his past filled the void around him. His father Goku's laughter rang like a beacon of encouragement, and his mother Chi-Chi's gentle yet firm scolding reminded him of the values she instilled in him. The camaraderie of his friends, their unwavering support and belief in him, reverberated in his heart. I carry their hopes and dreams within me, Gohan thought, his resolve solidifying like unbreakable steel. I cannot fail. Drawing upon these memories, his spirit surged with newfound determination. The raw energies of creation swirled faster, converging into a singular point where his essence resided. Every memory, every lesson, and every triumph became threads in the tapestry of his being, woven together with the pure elemental key around him. Then it happened. A blinding surge of energy erupted, radiating outward across dimensions, bending space and time. The explosion of light was so intense that it momentarily illuminated the farthest corners of the other world. From the epicenter of the explosion, Gohan emerged anew. His transformation was awe-inspiring. His hair cascaded down to his waist, wild yet majestic, as black as the void of space. His eyes glowed with a fierce red hue, reflecting the fiery, untamed spirit of his beast form. Surrounding him was an aura of swirling crimson and gold, pulsating with an otherworldly energy. Lightning crackled and danced around him, reminiscent of the raw intensity of a Super Saiyan 2. His physique was lean and streamlined, akin to the divine form of a Super Saiyan god, yet every fiber of his being radiated unimaginable power. The air around him vibrated with his energy, each pulse reshaping the fabric of the other world itself. It was as if existence acknowledged his new form. This was Mystic Beast 101. Gohan took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling with a calm yet profound sense of mastery. The energies within him weren't chaotic. They flowed together like rivers joining to form an ocean. He could feel the balance, the unity of mortal and divine, coursing through every cell of his body. This is incredible, he whispered, his voice calm yet resonant, carrying a subtle reverberation that seemed to echo through the very air. Down below, King Kai, who had been shielding his eyes from the radiant display, slowly lowered his arms. As his vision adjusted, he gazed up at the figure standing at the center of the transformation. For a long moment, he was utterly speechless, overwhelmed by the sheer presence radiating from Gohan. Gohan, you've done it, King Kai finally stammered, his voice trembling with awe. Gohan descended gently from the sky, his movements graceful and effortless. When his feet touched the ground, there was no sound, as though the universe itself welcomed his presence without resistance. He looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers experimentally as tiny arcs of energy danced across his skin. "I can feel everything," he said in amazement. His tone carried no arrogance, only wonder. The flow of ki in every corner of the universe, the heartbeat of worlds, the whispers of the stars themselves. King Kai cautiously approached, still grappling with the overwhelming sensation of Gohan's energy. "This power," he murmured, "it's unlike anything I've ever sensed before. Even the gods of destruction would pale in comparison to this." Gohan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I've merged all my previous forms into one. There's no longer a need to transform. Every part of who I am has become one. I am complete." He glanced around, his heightened senses picking up on subtle changes in the environment. The barren patches of the landscape had begun to bloom with vibrant flowers, their petals glowing faintly with an ethereal light. The sky shimmered with auroras in shades of gold, violet, and green, as if celebrating his transformation. "Your very presence is altering the other world," King Kai observed, his tone equal parts admiration and concern. Gohan closed his eyes briefly, focusing inward. He willed his energy to calm, pulling it closer to himself to avoid affecting the environment further. The auroras dimmed slightly, though their beauty lingered. "I'll need to master this power," he said quietly. "It's more than I've ever handled before." Suddenly, a ripple spread through the fabric of reality itself, like a wave echoing across an infinite ocean. The tremor was subtle but unmistakable, resonating far beyond King Kai's domain. In distant realms, deities and celestial beings paused in their tasks, their attention drawn to the disturbance. Far above, in the highest planes of existence, the Grand Kai convened with other supreme entities. They stood in a grand hall, their forms shimmering with divine light, their expressions serious. "What is this disturbance?" one deity inquired, their voice carrying an air of authority. "A power surge," another replied, scanning the flow of ki across the realms. "It's originating from King Kai's domain." The gathered beings exchanged uneasy glances. "A mortal presence?" one asked, skeptically. "It's beyond mortal comprehension," another said, their voice tinged with awe. "Something has shifted." The Grand Kai stepped forward, his gaze distant, as if peering into the fabric of existence itself. "Could it be Gohan?" he pondered aloud, his voice filled with both curiosity and concern. Back on King Kai's planet, Gohan stood at the edge of the serene world, testing the depths of his newfound power. He gazed at the horizon, his mind sharp and focused, yet a flicker of something deeper, purpose, burned within his eyes. With a mere thought, he vanished, reappearing on the opposite side of the planet in an instant. The space between had warped, as if bending to his will. He marveled at the sensation, a slight smile gracing his lips. "Incredible," he murmured to himself. "I can traverse dimensions with ease now. It's like walking through an open door." Raising his hand toward the sky, he focused, and tiny orbs of light began to gather at his fingertips. Each sphere pulsed gently, humming with elemental energy. They shifted in color and intensity, blending into each other like living particles. "Energy manipulation at the elemental level," Gohan whispered, his voice tinged with awe. "It's as natural as breathing now." He closed his hand, and the orbs dissipated into the air, leaving a shimmering trail in their wake. Gohan tilted his head back, staring at the endless expanse of the other world's sky. He inhaled deeply, his expression turning resolute. "It's time," he said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of his decision. "I believe I'm ready." Turning to face King Kai, who had been watching from a distance, Gohan spoke with gratitude. "Thank you for everything, King Kai, but I'm afraid I must leave this place. My father needs my help." King Kai's eyes widened in confusion. He hurried toward Gohan, his hands raised in protest. "What are you talking about, Gohan? Leave this place? Have you forgotten that you're dead? There's no way for you to leave the other world, unless the Grand Kai himself grants permission." King Kai paused, his expression darkening as he added, "And since the incident with Kid Buu, we Kais have worked tirelessly to ensure that no mortal can disrupt the balance of the other world again. Even with your strength, Gohan, this is impossible." But Gohan's gaze didn't waver. His calm demeanor unnerved King Kai, as if the young warrior already knew something the Kai didn't. "I haven't forgotten, King Kai," Gohan replied, his voice steady. "But there's something you didn't know. I was wished back to life years ago by Broly." "What?" King Kai gasped, his antennae twitching with shock. Gohan nodded solemnly. "I didn't tell you. because I feared you wouldn't help me train if you knew. But before I came here, I spoke with Purunga, the Namekian dragon. We made a contract, a binding agreement that would remain dormant until I invoked it with specific words. King Kai's confusion deepened. A contract? What are you talking about, Gohan? Gohan closed his eyes for a moment, drawing a deep breath. When he opened them again, they glowed with determination. I'm sorry for tricking you, King Kai. Truly. But I need to go now. This is goodbye. He raised his hand to the sky and spoke clearly, his voice echoing through the other world. Arise, great dragon. Fulfill your contract and take me to my father, now. Before King Kai could react, a blinding beam of light engulfed Gohan, enveloping him entirely. The energy surged with such intensity that the ground beneath Gohan cracked and the air vibrated with a deep hum. No! King Kai shouted, shielding his eyes. What's happening? In an instant, Gohan vanished, leaving only a faint shimmer of light where he once stood. King Kai stood frozen, his face a mixture of shock and disbelief. Far away in the past, on the planet Salada, another beam of light shot down from the heavens. It pierced the roof of a sacred chamber where Gohan's lifeless body had been preserved. Since the day Broly left the body in King Salada's care, the king had protected it fiercely, seeing it as an act of gratitude for Gohan's role in defeating Moro, the Planet Eater. The beam engulfed the chamber, filling it with radiant energy. The light was so bright, it forced the guards outside to avert their eyes. Then, as quickly as it had come, the beam faded, and with it, Gohan's body vanished. In the vastness between worlds, the two beams of light, one carrying Gohan's essence, and the other his physical body, converged. Their collision sent ripples of energy spiraling outward, intertwining his soul and body into one unified form. As the energies merged, Gohan's eyes fluttered open. He drew a sharp breath, his lungs filling with air for the first time in years. His heart beat powerfully in his chest, and his senses were overwhelmed by the vividness of the living world. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Gohan was alive. His eyes had opened up in the world of the living. The scene shifted to the mysterious fourth dimension, a realm beyond the three known dimensions, untouchable by most, and ruled by beings of unimaginable power. Two of these dimensions lay under Zeno's dominion, but the third, shrouded in secrecy and danger, was governed by Zephyr, the king of everything, Zeno's father, and an entity of such magnitude that even the bravest dared not speak his name lightly. On a parallel version of Earth within the fourth dimension, chaos reigned. The skies churned with violent storms of energy, the very fabric of reality trembling under the force of the battle unfolding below. Ultra Ego Vegeta stood at the epicenter of destruction, his aura a blistering, toxic flame of purple and silver, radiating power that twisted and drained the life around him. Vegeta's hand gripped Abaddon's face with merciless intensity. The primordial demon god thrashed in his grasp, his monstrous form attempting to break free, but Vegeta was unyielding. A grim smirk twisted his lips as he began to channel his ki, summoning energy for a devastating final flash. You think you can overpower me, demon? Vegeta growled, his voice like a low rumble of thunder. You don't understand the meaning of power until you face me. With a roar that seemed to split the heavens, Vegeta unleashed the attack, point blank, a blinding torrent of energy erupting from his hands and engulfing Abaddon's head entirely. The blast illuminated the battlefield, shaking the planet itself as the force rippled outward, carving deep trenches into the ground and disintegrating nearby mountains. When the energy subsided, Abaddon's massive form staggered back, his head smoldering from the impact. But Vegeta wasn't fooled. He knew better than to underestimate this foe. As the smoke cleared, Abaddon's charred flesh began to regenerate, the demon's grotesque features reappearing with unsettling speed. Vegeta's fists clenched, his teeth grinding together. Of course you're not dead. Why would you be? Vegeta muttered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Looks like I'll have to finish this the hard way. The Sane Prince focused, tapping into the reserves of stolen power he had wrenched from Abaddon earlier in the fight. As he powered up, something unexpected happened. His Ultra Ego transformation shifted, evolving into a new form entirely. His body burned with energy so potent that the very ground beneath him blackened and cracked, and the air around him shimmered with heat. Vegeta looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers as he felt the raw, intoxicating strength coursing through his veins. His body was changing in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. His power wasn't just increasing, it was evolving. The life energy of the Mirror Earth, the plants, and even microscopic organisms began to drain into him without his conscious effort. The closer anything came to Vegeta, the faster it withered and died, its essence absorbed into his ever-growing strength. "What is this?" Vegeta murmured, a rare flicker of awe in his voice. His aura became darker, almost liquid in its appearance, pulsating with a poisonous sheen. The air grew heavy, suffocating, as if Vegeta's very presence demanded subjugation. Abaddon snarled, his voice a guttural growl that reverberated across the battlefield. "You dare to tamper with the power of a god, mortal? Do you have any idea what you've become?" Vegeta's smirk returned, more savage than ever. "I don't need your lectures, demon. All I know is this. I'm stronger than you now, and that's all that matters." Unbeknownst to Vegeta, his transformation had taken him to a level beyond even Ultra Ego. The life energy he absorbed from Abaddon had triggered a mutation in his body, a result of the Aqua Foam, a mysterious sentient substance that had merged with him during a previous battle. The Aqua Foam, constantly regulating itself, had forced Vegeta's body to adapt and evolve to accommodate its needs. This evolution was no small feat. It was as if his Saiyan physiology had undergone millennia of adaptation in mere moments, sculpting him into something new, something primordial. Vegeta clenched his fist, feeling the intoxicating surge of power within. His transformation had inadvertently turned him into a being akin to the ancient gods themselves. He was no longer merely a warrior, he was a force of nature. This was the best way to answer Vegeta development. Even though the Aqua Foam no longer resided within Vegeta, its influence had permanently altered him. His body had undergone a profound and irreversible evolution. The space where the Aqua Foam had once been was now replaced by the life energy of the primordial demon gods, a force known as chakra. Similar to Aqua Foam and Ki, chakra was one of the 5 fundamental natural elements used in the creation of life and the multiverse. Unlike Aqua Foam, however, chakra could never be expelled once it entered a body. It fused with the very essence of its host, transforming them into a different race entirely. At least, that was what chakra was supposed to do. But Vegeta was no ordinary being. His body had housed 2 of the 5 elements, Aqua Foam and chakra, an unprecedented combination that triggered yet another mutation. Vegeta's physiology was reshaped once more, making him the first being in existence, aside from Zeno himself, to belong to 2 distinct races. He was now a hybrid, part Saiyan, part primordial demon. The transformation had fundamentally changed him. Vegeta was no longer bound by the limitations of a single lineage. His form had transcended Ultra Ego, merging with the demon energy and evolving into something far beyond, something new. This was primordial Ultra Vegeta, a fusion of his Saiyan heritage and his newfound demonic nature. In this form, Vegeta's aura burned like a storm of molten power, its intensity causing reality itself to ripple and distort. His appearance was fearsome. His eyes glowed with a predatory light, his skin crackling with dark, radiant energy. His very existence exuded dominance. The fusion of Saiyan and demon potential had unlocked power beyond comprehension. Vegeta flexed his hands, his smirk widening. "This is what I was meant to become," he muttered to himself. A true warrior, ruthless, unstoppable. The air around him turned oppressive as Vegeta prepared his next move. Without hesitation, he thrust his hand forward, unleashing a concentrated burst of energy. Abaddon's massive form stood no chance. In an instant, his head was incinerated, the flames so intense that they burned through even the demon god's regenerative power. But it didn't stop there. The poisonous energy radiating from Vegeta's body seeped into what remained of Abaddon's corpse. The monstrous body began to decay rapidly, breaking apart into particles that were drawn toward Vegeta as if by an unseen force. The Saiyan Prince absorbed the remnants of Abaddon's energy effortlessly, as though it were nothing more than fuel for his ever-growing power. By the time the process was complete, Abaddon was no more. Not even ashes remained. Vegeta stood amidst the carnage, his transformation glowing ominously under the darkened sky. In another realm, far removed from the battlefield, Abaddon's fellow primordial demon gods felt the severing of their connection. The death of one of their own was a monumental event, and the shock rippled through the demonic collective like a thunderclap. One among them, Azazel, a being of tremendous power and stature, clenched his fists in fury. The link that all primordial demon gods shared hummed with disruption, an unsettling void where Abaddon's presence had once been. Yet there was something more, a new energy that had emerged, alien and terrifying in its potency. "Who are you?" Azazel demanded, his telepathic voice echoing through the shared link. It was filled with authority, but also an undercurrent of unease. What has become of Abaddon? The only response was silence. Vegeta, standing amidst the aftermath of his victory, showed no interest in answering. Azazel's fury grew. His voice boomed across the psychic connection. "Answer me at once," he shouted, his rage palpable even across the vastness of the primordial demon's link. Back in the fourth dimension, Vegeta glanced at his hands once more, flexing his fingers as waves of power surged through him. The toxic aura around him intensified, as if daring the universe itself to challenge him. This new path Vegeta had stumbled upon was no accident, at least not in his mind. It felt right, perfectly aligned with who he was. He wasn't evil, but he was unapologetically ruthless. And in this moment, standing on the precipice of his newfound power, he couldn't help but savor the sheer magnitude of what he had become. Vegeta stood still amidst the battlefield's eerie silence, the air thick with the remnants of Abaddon's energy. For a moment, he heard nothing but the crackling of his own aura, burning with unrelenting power. Then, a voice echoed in his mind, distant yet unmistakable. It startled him at first, a commanding, angry tone demanding answers. "You, what has become of Abaddon?" shouted Azazel once more, as he felt as if Vegeta was ignoring him. Vegeta's eyes narrowed, his instincts flaring. The voice didn't belong to anyone in his immediate vicinity, nor was it his own thoughts playing tricks on him. Was he losing control of his new power? The possibility gnawed at the edge of his mind. And then, it mentioned Abaddon's name. Vegeta closed his eyes, a flicker of realization crossing his face. He focused, allowing the strange connection to deepen. A vague image began to form in his mind, blurry at first, like trying to see through a foggy window. But it became clearer, sharpening into the form of a demon. A being, perhaps, seething with rage and exuding an unmistakable demonic presence. Vegeta smirked, his confidence swelling as he finally spoke. "Oh, I remember you," Vegeta said, his voice laced with mockery. "You were one of the fools standing beside Abaddon, his companion, his lackey, whatever you call yourselves." The figure blinked, visibly startled. Vegeta's words had caught him off guard. "What did you say?" the voice barked. "You can see me? That's impossible." "Of course I can," Vegeta replied casually, folding his arms. "Isn't that how this little communication game of yours works? You demons send your thoughts, and I see the fool on the other end." Azazel, for that was who he was, froze in disbelief. His voice, usually commanding and assured, wavered with a hint of fear. "No, that's not how it works. It shouldn't be possible. The link only transmits thoughts, not..." He stopped mid-sentence, the realization hitting him like a blow. For the first time in his long existence, Azazel saw not just an image, but a full, clear vision of his opponent. It was as if a camera had been planted in his mind, zooming in to reveal every terrifying detail. At first, Azazel didn't recognize Vegeta. This being looked nothing like the Saiyan warrior he had dismissed as insignificant. Vegeta's transformation was monstrous and divine all at once, a form so alien it defied explanation. His hair, long and flowing like a river of shadows, gleamed with a purple hue, reminiscent of his Ultra Ego 3 form. His eyes, pitch black and void-like, radiated an oppressive demonic energy. The lack of eyebrows gave his expression a savage, primal edge, while the famous god of destruction earrings gleamed against his violet aura. The most striking feature, however, was the 8-pointed chaos star emblazoned across his back. The symbol pulsed with power, glowing like a halo, warped into something dark and foreboding. It was as if the very cosmos bowed to this being's presence. Azazel severed the link abruptly, his terror overwhelming him. Vegeta chuckled to himself as the connection faded. "Running already? Typical," he muttered, shaking his head. Far away in a throne room draped in black flames and unholy energy, Azazel stumbled back from the psychic severance. His face was pale, his confidence shaken. Around him stood other primordial demon gods, their collective aura an oppressive mix of malice and anticipation. At the center of the room sat Zarama, their current leader and the first mortal to have ascended to demonic divinity. Zarama's expression was unreadable, his glowing eyes betraying neither concern nor interest as he leaned forward lazily, resting his chin on his knuckles. "What is it?" Zarama asked, his voice deep and gravelly, carrying an unspoken command for immediate answers. "Has Abaddon and Mephistopheles not finished those so-called false demons yet?" Azazel, still shaken, tried to compose himself. "Abaddon," he began, his voice faltering before he steadied it. "Abaddon is dead." Zarama's brow raised slightly at the news, though his calm demeanor remained unchanged. "Dead, is he?" Zarama said, his tone more curious than alarmed. He leaned back on his throne, his long claws tapping idly against the armrest. Interesting. I suppose that isn't entirely surprising. Abaddon was adequate at best, a pawn, nothing more. Azazel's shock deepened. Zarama's indifference to the death of one of their own was unsettling, even by their standards. This is no ordinary situation, Azazel pressed. He wasn't just defeated, he was destroyed, completely annihilated. I felt it, Zarama. His essence didn't just fade, it was absorbed. Now, Zarama's interest was piqued. He sat upright, his clawed hand stroking his chin. Absorbed, you say, and by whom? Azazel hesitated, the memory of the vision still fresh and horrifying. I don't know what it is, he admitted. It looked like a Saiyan, but not. Its energy. It was something else entirely, something beyond explanation. This being, it allowed me to see it, to feel its power. It's unlike anything I've ever encountered. Zarama's lips curved into a sinister grin. Do tell, he said, his voice oozing with curiosity. Whoever has the strength to kill Abaddon is worth noting, perhaps even worth taking. His eyes gleamed with ambition. If such a being exists, their power may be the key to achieving my true goal, to kill Zeno himself. Azazel gulped, his earlier bravado gone. It's not just power, he muttered. This being, it's a new kind of demon, a hybrid. It defies everything we know. Zarama chuckled darkly. Good, he said. Let it defy. We'll see just how far its power can go before I claim it for myself. Azazel's face remained tense as he tried to process what he had just witnessed, his mind still reeling from the image of Vegeta in his new form. The hybrid's power had been nothing short of terrifying, both in its raw strength and in its implication. Azazel turned his attention back to Zarama, his words hesitant but laden with concern. I'm unsure what that thing was, Azazel began, his tone betraying his unease. It's clearly a primordial demon. That much is obvious, given how it was able to communicate with me through the shared demon link. But he paused, his brow furrowing, as his mind tried to untangle the enigma. It feels off. It also felt mortal, yet divine, like it's some kind of mixed-race being. Zarama tilted his head slightly, his expression neutral, though his glowing eyes betrayed curiosity. Azazel began pacing, his hands clasped behind his back, in the manner of a teacher pondering a complex problem. If I had to guess, Azazel continued, his voice growing quieter as he muttered aloud, I'd say it's a two-breath being. Zarama arched a brow, intrigued. Two-breath? You're saying it possesses the pure essence of two races? Azazel nodded. Exactly. It's not a half-breath, not the result of two races producing a child. That kind of hybrid has a diluted essence. No, this being is something else entirely. It possesses the pure, untainted blood of two races, likely a Saiyan and a demon. Its body allows it to walk both evolutionary paths simultaneously. Such a thing should be impossible. Yet, he trailed off, his pacing quickening. This is troubling, Azazel finally admitted, turning back to Zarama. This reminds me of what I once tried to achieve with my son Arak, before the angels intervened. Zarama leaned forward slightly, his interest clearly piqued. Arak? He repeated, his voice heavy with curiosity. The son you sacrificed to free us from the prison realm? Azazel's jaw tightened at the memory, but he nodded. Yes, as I've told you before, Arak was born of two races, angel and demon. He had the potential to be far more powerful than any of us, perhaps even greater than the Grand Priest himself. That's why the angels feared him. They attacked before he could finish his evolutionary path, before his potential could fully awaken. Zarama's eyes glimmered with understanding. And now you think this being, this hybrid, is something similar? Similar, Azazel confirmed, though his voice was heavy with caution, but far more dangerous. This one has already begun to evolve. If I had to guess, it's still in the early stages of its potential. Still a fresh turn, as we'd call it. It hasn't yet reached its full power, which makes it beatable for now. But if left to grow, Azazel hesitated, his next words coming reluctantly. Lord Zarama, I mean no disrespect to your power, but if we allow this being to reach its peak, even you may find yourself unable to defeat it. It depends entirely on what its other race is. If it's something comparable to a Saiyan, combined with its demonic essence, he trailed off, leaving the implications hanging in the air. Zarama remained silent for a long moment, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the armrest of his throne. Then, Azazel spoke again, his voice urgent. It would be wise to act now, Lord Zarama. If you take his power while he's still growing, It will add to your own strength. With that much power, even defeating the Grand Priest would become child's play. A slow smile crept across Zarama's face, his sharp teeth glinting in the dim, unholy light of the room. The suggestion intrigued him, certainly. The idea of taking such a vast, untapped reservoir of power was tempting. Yet Zarama's mind worked in ways far more cunning than Azazel's. "Not yet," Zarama finally said, his voice calm but laced with authority. "Let him grow stronger. After all, the more power he gains, the more there will be for me to take when the time comes." He leaned back, his grin widening. "I fear no one. My power is rivaled only by the Grand Priest and Zeno. No mortal, no god, no being of any lineage frightens me." Azazel frowned, but dared not argue. Zarama's confidence was absolute, and his hunger for power was insatiable. Though Azazel had his doubts, he could see the logic in Zarama's plan. Letting the hybrid grow meant that when Zarama finally claimed its power, it would elevate him to heights no one could challenge. As Zarama's sinister laughter echoed through the throne room, Azazel couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered in the pit of his stomach. The scene shifted to the farthest reaches of Universe 7, deep within the cold, unfeeling void of space. Amidst the endless stars, a sleek, ominous ship cut through the darkness like a blade. Inside the vessel, leaning casually against the metallic wall, was a figure well known throughout the universe. Frieza, the self-proclaimed Emperor of the universe. His golden form shimmered faintly in the dim lighting, a perpetual reminder of his immense power. But Frieza was not alone. Lying on a makeshift cot nearby was Beerus, the former god of destruction. His body, battered and frail, bore the scars of a grueling conflict. Beerus, now mortal, was on the verge of collapse, and his once intimidating presence was diminished. Yet his sharp, feline eyes still carried a glint of defiance. Their destination? The sacred world of the Kais, the home of Supreme Kai Shin, Beerus's counterpart, and one of the only beings who could help restore what Beerus had lost. The journey had taken weeks, with Frieza using the time to reflect on his ambitions. Frieza's expression remained impassive, but his thoughts churned. His reason for tagging along on this mission wasn't loyalty or concern for Beerus. It was power. Always power. "The Saiyans have surpassed me again and again," Frieza thought bitterly, his golden tail flicking behind him. First Kakarot, then Vegeta, and now they toy with divinity like it's a birthright. If they can achieve such power, then so can I. No, I must. He clenched his fist, his determination hardening like steel. Becoming a god of destruction, undergoing the training, and mastering the Hakai was not a choice for him. It was a necessity. The mortals had reached their limits, and he knew he was no exception. Divinity was the only path left for true dominance. Frieza glanced at Beerus, who stirred weakly. "The only way to finally rid myself of the Saiyans," he mused aloud, "is to rise above them once and for all. I will wipe them out and rule Universe 7 as its undisputed emperor." After weeks of travel, the ship finally descended upon the Kaioshin planet, its pristine surface glowing with divine energy. The ship's landing ramp hissed as it lowered, and the pair emerged into the bright, ethereal atmosphere. The sacred world of the Kais was as tranquil as ever, its lush greenery and floating land masses exuding an aura of peace. Waiting to greet them at the base of the ramp were Elder Kai and Shin, the Supreme Kai. Elder Kai's wrinkled face twisted into a cautious smile as his hands rested behind his back, while Shin stood upright, radiating a quiet sense of authority. "Welcome," Elder Kai said, his voice dry but cordial. "We've been expecting you." Beerus struggled to stand upright, leaning heavily on the side of the ship for support. His voice was hoarse, but still carried its trademark sharpness. "If you've been expecting us, then I assume you already know why we're here," he said. Elder Kai frowned, his bushy eyebrows furrowing. "We do, my lord, but I'm afraid we can't grant your request to restore your divinity. Not without explicit permission from the Grand Priest or Zeno-sama. Surely, you must have known this before coming." The words hit like a sledgehammer. Beerus's weakened body tensed, but before he could respond, Frieza acted. In a blur of golden light, Frieza shot forward, seizing Elder Kai by the collar. His grip tightened as he lifted the old Kai off the ground and forced him to his knees. "We will get what we came for," Frieza hissed, his crimson eyes blazing with fury. "Do you know the trouble we faced to get here? And you have the gall to tell us no? You'll give us what we want, or I'll rip it from you by force." "Monster!" Shin shouted, stepping forward defensively. His eyes burned with defiance, though a trace of fear lingered in his stance. "Release him at once, or you'll face me." Frieza turned his head slightly, his lips curling into a cruel smirk. "Don't be foolish, kid. If you move against me, you'll lose your life before you can even blink." Before Shin could act, a firm voice cut through the tension. "Enough!" It was Beerus. Despite his weakened state, the former god of destruction's tone was commanding. He stepped forward and placed a hand on Frieza's wrist, forcing the tyrant to release Elder Kai. "That will be enough of that," Beerus said, his voice laced with irritation. Frieza hesitated, then begrudgingly let go, his expression sour. Elder Kai stumbled back, clutching his throat and coughing. Beerus turned to Elder Kai, his sharp gaze softening ever so slightly. "Old man," Beerus began, "you've been one of my oldest friends, even if I don't show it. I'm sorry for sealing you in the Z-Sword, but the past is the past. Let's not hold grudges, Elder Kai blinked in surprise, not expecting such an admission from the usually prideful Beerus. Beerus continued, his voice carrying an uncharacteristic note of vulnerability. "You know everything that's happened. You know I was sealed away for 2 years, and during that time, a lot has happened. Things I don't understand. I just want answers. Who was responsible for the death of Whis? How did it happen?" Beerus took a deep breath, his exhaustion evident. "You owe me that much, at least. If not for me, then for the sake of our universe." The tension on the Kaioshin planet was suffocating, as Elder Kai's wrinkled face turned grim, his eyes lowering to the ground. He muttered to himself, just loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Friend!" He scoffed inwardly, shaking his head. "When did we become friends?" Raising his gaze, Elder Kai sighed deeply, his voice measured but firm. "I'm afraid that's not possible, Lord Beerus," he said with finality. "You are no longer a deity, and that status comes with limitations. Without divinity, you're not permitted access to certain knowledge. It's the law of the divine, and those rules are absolute." Beerus's fists clenched at his sides, the trembling barely restrained, as his feline eyes sharpened into dangerous slits. Elder Kai noticed but didn't waver, continuing. "You knew this, coming here. You must have understood that this would be the outcome." For a moment, silence fell. Then, Beerus turned his gaze to Shin, his counterpart, the one who had once balanced his destructive nature with creation. His voice, usually commanding, softened to an unsettling calmness. There was something unnerving about the way he spoke, calm, yet almost broken. "Tell me, Shin," Beerus said, his tone measured but with an edge of desperation. "Do you feel the same as Elder Kai? Do you agree that I don't deserve the answers I seek?" Shin stiffened, his skin seemed to pale, though he fought to keep his composure. Fear gripped him. Fear not just of what Beerus might do, but of what had already become of their universe. He took a step back, casting a nervous glance at Elder Kai before speaking. "Yes, my lord," Shin said finally, his voice trembling but resolute. "The rules of Lord Zeno are absolute. Compared to him, even you are insignificant. I'm sorry, but I cannot go against that." Beerus's lips parted slightly, as if he were about to protest, but no words came. For the first time in centuries, he looked uncertain, conflicted. A long, tense silence followed. Then, Beerus took a single step forward, his face hardening as he turned back to Elder Kai. "Very well," Beerus said softly. The words carried no malice, only a quiet resolve that felt heavier than a scream. "I was hoping it wouldn't come to this." He paused, his golden eyes narrowing into cold slits. "But you've made your choice, and to me, the importance of Whis far outweighs any so-called friendship we might have had." Before either Kai could react, Beerus raised his hand. His fingers splayed as a deadly black-purple aura began to swirl around his palm. "Hakai," Beerus whispered. The energy surged forward, engulfing both Elder Kai and Shin in a suffocating wave of destruction. Their forms began to disintegrate, breaking down into tiny particles. Yet, their faces remained oddly calm, devoid of fear or anger. They knew something Beerus didn't. As the Hakai completed its work, the two Kais disappeared, not into nothingness, as one might expect from the devastating technique, but into another dimension, the other world, where their divine duties would persist. This was the nature of Hakai when used on beings like them, a temporary removal from the living world. Elder Kai's voice echoed faintly as he faded from existence, his expression unreadable. "Goodbye, my friend," Elder Kai said softly. "I hope you find the peace you're looking for." And then he was gone. Beerus stood motionless, his hand still raised as if frozen in the aftermath of his own actions. Slowly, he lowered it, his gaze distant. Frieza, who had been watching silently, finally stepped closer, his golden form shimmering faintly in the dim light of the planet. "Touching," Frieza sneered, his tone dripping with mockery. "But I must say, Lord Beerus, I didn't think you had it in you to be sentimental, wasting time on such farewell." Beerus ignored him, his thoughts clearly elsewhere. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Come," Beerus said, his tone carrying a weight that silenced even Frieza's mocking tongue. "We're going to the time vault. I will find the time ring." Frieza blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "The time rings?" he repeated, his interest peaked. "Now that's an idea. Breaking the sacred time travel rule. How deliciously reckless of you." Beerus glanced at him, his expression grim. "I will find out what happened to Whis," he declared, his voice firm with resolve. "I will get my answers, even if it means killing the Saiyans." Frieza's grin widened, his crimson eyes gleaming with amusement. "This should be entertaining," he said, following as Beerus began to walk away. The Kaioshin planet was silent once more, its sacred grounds now empty and devoid of its protectors. As the former god of destruction and the emperor of the universe enter the time ring vault, an ominous tension lingered in the air, as if the universe itself braced for what would come next. And that's it for today's episode, guys. If you watched to the end, then that could be an indication that you enjoy the series. So please leave a like on the video. Thank you and take care.